Chapter 15:20. Long Yunjan's action of killing the flame beast paused as he turned his head over. This one look gave the flame beast an opportunity. Its flaming claws fiercely struck towards Long Yunjan's head. Ah, Jean, be careful! Yi Qing Luo's glower flame fan immediately released a hurricane. But the flame beast's attack had already landed. Just at this moment, class monitor. A panicked cry was heard. Following that, a figure flew past, directly knocking Long Yunjan away. The flame beast's claw landed on that figure's back. Coincidentally, Yi Qing Luo's hurricane landed on the flame beast. The flaming beast let out a howl and suddenly turned into flames, disappearing without a trace. Zi Qing. Yi Qing Luo released Dmo Xian's arm as she jogged towards Tong Zi Qing's direction. Tong Zi Qing laid on the ground. The academy uniform had been burnt, revealing the skin on her back. The originally fair skin was now a patch of burn marks. Yi Qing Luo's hand had just touched Tong Zi Qing when she heard Tong Zi Qing moaning in pain. Sister Zi Qing. Kitty Li also jogged over, looking at the wound on Tong Zi Qing's back. Her eyes were filled with heartache tears. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She took a look at the surrounding, which were still pouncing over, as she spoke in a low voice. Let me give you a simple treatment first. After we leave this place, I'll bandage it properly. Long Yunjan was pushed to one side, as his footsteps staggered a little, as he stabilized himself. Following that, his vision looked towards Tong Zi Qing, whose face was filled with pain, as she laid on the ground. His azure blue eyes flickered slightly. It was Tong Zi Qing, who rushed up without hesitation, helping him to block the flame beast's attack. Such a beautiful lady. But now, it was a patch of charred black. The person who injured Tong Zi Qing was him. Because of his absent-mindedness, gave the flame beast an opportunity, which led to Tong Zi Qing helping him to block the attack and getting injured. What are you still in a daze for? Yan Xiaoyi looked at Long Yunjan, who was staring at Tong Zi Qing in a daze, as Qiao Jin's face surfaced in her mind. Tong Zi Qing admired Long Yunjan. This was a secret which the entire class knew. But Long Yunjan never gave Tong Zi Qing any sort of response. Seeing that Tong Zi Qing was willing to sacrifice her own life for Long Yunjan, Gu Lingji's heart skipped a beat. Strangely, Yan Xiaoyi thought of herself and Qiao Jin. She admired Qiao Jin. But Qiao Jin didn't give her any response. He even pushed her towards Shi Shanglan. An indescribable anger rose from the bottom of his heart. Yan Xiaoyi also didn't have a good expression towards Long Yunjan. It's all because you were distracted that caused Zi Qing to get injured because of you. Didn't you hear what Qing Luo said? Let's kill these flaming beasts first and leave this place. Long Yunjan snapped out of his daze. His azure eyes blinked. Her long eyelashes were trembling slightly. He looked at Tong Zi Qing's pained expression and slowly tightened his grip on the longsword in his hand. He then flew into the midst of the flaming beasts. Dmo Xian's appearance, coupled with Gui Wu and Zhou Mo's actions. In just a short moment, all the flame beasts in the surroundings had been cleaned up. He looked at the blazing flames around him. Yi Qing Luo was worried that those flame beasts would continue to spawn. After helping Tong Zi Qing to take care of her burns, Yi Qing Luo suggested to seek refuge at Vermilion Bird's side. Vermilion Bird was born at the heart meridian of the Foundation Land, and it had the might of a sacred beast. These flame beasts shouldn't dare to barge in. After getting everyone's approval, Yi Qing Luo bent down and was about to help Tong Zi Qing up. Chapter 15:21. Long Yunjan bent down and said calmly, "Let me do it." Following that, he carefully avoided the wound on Tong Zi Qing's back and circled her in his arms. A slight movement could also touch Tong Zi Qing's skin. Tong Zi Qing, who had long fallen into a coma, groaned in pain. Long Yunjan's body stiffened. Staring at Tong Zi Qing's tightly knitted brows, the expression on his face turned gloomy. Looking at Long Yunjan's expression, Yi Qing Luo quietly retreated back to Diamo Xian's side. The usually cold Long Yunzhan was now willing to hug Tong Ziqing. To the both of them, this should be considered as a progress. It looked like Tong Ziqing blocking for Long Yunzhan wasn't as bad as she imagined. Diamo Xian rubbed her little head and said softly, "Stop looking, let's go, the flame beasts will be born again." The two of them led the way. The group of people followed behind. Behind them was extremely lively, and they could hear Kitty Li's cries from time to time. Yi Qing Luo wanted to call Kitty Li over to her side but was stopped by Diamo Xian. Seeing Long Yunzhan hugging Tong Ziqing in his arms, Kitty Li was preparing to stick to Yi Qing Luo. But before she could walk over, her body felt light. She fell into a warm and firm embrace again. "Little wild cat, those who are injured should stay here obediently, don't run around recklessly." The man's hoarse voice was beside her ear, extremely seductive. Kitty Li's cheeks blushed slightly as she shrunk her sensitive neck unnaturally and struggled. "Frivolous man! Kitty Li wants to follow sister, not run around recklessly. Let go of Kitty." "Little wildcat is not obedient, be careful that student Yi Qing Luo will hate you." Zoemo laughed softly as he hugged her even tighter. The petite figure in his arms stiffened as her round eyes widened. "Sister won't hate Kitty." Zomo's almond-shaped eyes squinted as he smiled like a fox. "That overlord brother-in-law of yours usually doesn't meet up with student Yi Qing Luo. You went over to pester student Yi Qing Luo and disturbed their lovey-dovey love, so you're not an obedient kitty." Kitty Li's struggling movements gradually stopped. She blinked her eyes. Her gaze swept around. His elder sister and Di Zun's brother-in-law were walking at the very front. Their bodies were tightly pressed together, and they seemed to be whispering something. From the looks of it, she was indeed very infatuated. There was no room for anyone else. Then, he looked at Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing. Although it was quiet, Tong Ziqing was unconscious and Long Yunzhan's face was cold. There was no room for anyone else. She pursed her lips and furrowed her brows in distress. Zoemo saw that her expression had loosened. He leaned close to her ear and breathed a warm breath. "So, little wild cat, stay in my arms and be a good baby." Why did this sentence sound so strange? Why do I feel like I'm being treated as a pet? Kitty Li's mind was in chaos because of Zoemo. She stopped struggling and obediently nestled in Zomo's arms. Gui Wu, who was walking behind them, helplessly sighed and shook his head. The beastmen were indeed naive. With just a few words from Zoemo, he obediently obeyed. However, this was the first time he had seen Zoemo so concerned about a woman. On their way, they met several batches of flame beasts. After killing their way through, they finally reached the heart vein zone. Just as Yi Qing Luo had guessed, they had just entered the sea of fire. The flame beasts that were chasing relentlessly stopped in their track. Chapter 1522. Ugly woman, what infuriating things did you do outside again, that those flame beasts had chased all the way to this sacred beast's territory? A shrill voice filled with mockery could be heard. Everyone's vision immediately turned towards the direction of the voice. They saw a sky full of flames. A noble and elegant vermilion bird, and a white tiger were suspended above the sea of flames. Instructor Luo and Instructor Li were dumbstruck as they stared at the sea of flames as their breathing hastened. This is... Gui Wu narrowed his sinister eyes. Vermilion bird? Vermilion bird is actually here? Zomo's brows rose leisurely, as he shot a glance at Yi Qing Luo with interest. Tisk. So to say, the divine object descending from the flame lair is referring to Vermilion bird? Hearing Gui Wu and Zoemo admit that this was one of the 4 sacred beasts, Vermilion bird sacred beast, the 2 instructors' eyes were all dazed. What day was it today? Not only did they meet the mysterious Overlord, they also met the mysterious Death God Castle Lord. Then they met the White Tiger sacred beast, and now they even met Vermilion bird. Was this a test of their heart's endurance? Yi Qing Luo didn't reply Vermilion bird's words. Instead she turned her gaze towards Long Yunjian. "Ah Jean, put Zi Qing here, I'll bandage her wound again." Long Yunjian put down Tong Zi Qing. Yi Qing Luo called Qi Qi over, using its huge body to block the other's vision. She then used the dagger to cut open Tong Zi Qing's clothes. The flame beast's attack was extremely vicious. This burn, Tong Zi Qing's back was almost scalded. Even if it was healed in the end, it would probably leave behind a scalded scar. In this continent where men were superior to women, if a lady had a scar, it would be a problem for her to get married in future. Yi Qing Luo sighed softly. After Tong Zi Qing's wound was healed, she had to flip through the 100 refinement pills to see if there was any prescription for removing scars. Qi Qi was called away. Vermilion Bird felt that it was neglected, especially when those foolish humans were using a judgmental gaze to stare at it. The Vermilion Bird immediately felt that its dignity as a sacred beast had been insulted. A pair of scarlet-red beast eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo with extreme displeasure. "Ugly woman, how dare you ignore this sacred beast's words? Do you believe that this sacred beast will chase you out to feed those flame beasts right now?" It flapped its wings and circled above the sea of fire. The phoenix feathers that overflowed with colorful light flowed with a dazzling brilliance. Still, no one responded to it despite its clamor. "Hey, ugly girl!" The Vermilion Bird opened its mouth in displeasure and was about to fly into a rage. However, he was stopped by a pair of extremely cold eyes. Yi Qing Luo raised her charming eyes. Her eyes were suffused with an extremely cold glint as she stared coldly at Vermilion Bird. Her face was expressionless, without the gentleness and smile from before. "Shut up! You!" The Vermilion Bird flapped its wings, its crimson eyes burning with rage. "How dare you disrespect this holy beast? I'm being polite to you because you and Mu Qiqi are old friends." Yi Qing Luo's expression turned cold as she berated sternly, "With your little temper, it doesn't matter how you treat me, but now I'm not in the mood to joke with you." Perhaps it was Yi Qing Luo's aura which made the Vermilion Bird inexplicably palpitate. The Vermilion Bird opened its sharp mouth, but in the end, it didn't say a word. It arrogantly turned its head away as its entire body submerged into the sea of fire, disappearing without a trace. The heart arteries regained its original tranquility. Chapter 1523. By the time Yi Qing Luo finished applying medicine for Tong Zi Qing and changed into a new set of uniform, it was already 1 hour later. Yi Qing Luo wiped the sweat off her forehead. Just as she stood up, a hand touched her forehead. The handkerchief with the scent of sandalwood gently covered her forehead. She looked up and happened to see a pair of slender fingers with distinct joint. Under the raging flames, it was coated with a layer of lustrous multicolored light. That finger pinched a handkerchief and wiped the sweat on Yi Qing Luo's forehead. "You've worked hard." Yi Qing Luo shook her head and her soft body leaned into Dmo Xian's embrace. Ah Xian, her body might leave a scar. Dmo Xian's gaze swept past Tong Zi Qing, who was sprawled on the ground as he sighed softly. Leaving a scar was extremely serious for a woman. The atmosphere inexplicably became somewhat heavy. Suddenly, Long Yunjian's icy cold voice was heard. "Qing Luo, you said, the scars on Zi Qing's body cannot be removed?" "Very difficult." Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. The flame beast's flames are different from ordinary blazing flames. If it wasn't for the fact that Zi Qing knew how to use her profound qi to protect herself when she blocked that move, otherwise she would have long been burnt into ashes by that ball of blazing flames. To be honest, the fact that Tong Ziqing was still alive after that attack was unbelievable. It was already a miracle. The medicinal pills and scar-removing ointment that she had on her now were not of much use to Tong Ziqing. Long Yunjian fell silent. He looked in the direction of Tong Ziqing, his azure blue eyes flashing with a trace of complicated emotions. "I'll think of something when I get back," Yi Qing Luo continued. "If you feel remorseful, Just treat her gently during this period of time when she's recuperating, that's enough. Tong Ziqing had never hoped to obtain Long Yunzhan's love. As for Long Yunzhan, he was a human dragon. The things he carried on his back were too much. If the two of them wanted to be together, there would be many obstacles. The only thing she could do was, even when Tong Ziqing was still in love with Long Yunzhan, create possible opportunities for them. In the end, it was up to them to decide what path they would take. Long Yunzhan looked at Tong Ziqing's direction without blinking and did not reply. Yiqing Luo didn't say anything else. She rested for a moment before walking to the entrance of the heart vein. The flaming beasts outside the entrance had already disappeared. But Yiqing Luo knew. Once they stepped out of the entrance, he would definitely be surrounded by the flaming beasts. Everyone had been found. She had also seen the vermilion bird that had summoned Chi-Chi. Right now, it was time to think of a way to leave this place. Chi-Chi. Yiqing Luo patted Chi-Chi's head. Did Vermilion Bird say how we should leave this place? Chi-Chi shook her head. The Vermilion Bird's personality. Master has seen it. It can't wait for Chi-Chi to stay here with it. How would it be willing to tell Chi-Chi the way to leave this place? In other words, it knows how to leave this place. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Chi-Chi paused for a moment before replying, I think so. Yiqing Luo nodded thoughtfully. Since it knows the way to leave, then it's easy. Go, summon the Vermilion Bird. Chi-Chi looked at her master with a crafty look in her eyes. His hair stood on end. Cough cough, every time his master revealed such an expression. It indicated that someone was going to be unlucky. This time the unlucky one wasn't a person, but a beast. Vermilion Bird's personality indeed needed to be tamed. Chi-Chi moved its tiger claws as it walked to the side of the Sea of Fire. Chapter 1524. Chi-Chi let out a tiger's roar and the entire Sea of Fire rippled with magma. The sparks flew all over the sky. However, there was no movement in the Sea of Fire. Vermilion Bird didn't come up. Chi-Chi turned its head and looked at Yiqing Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo standing there with her arms crossed calmly, it looked towards the direction of the Sea of Fire and let out another roar. The magma tumbled even more violently. The majesty of the sacred beast caused the entire heart vein to shake. Whoa! Chi-Chi seemed to be urging Vermilion Bird to come out as the tiger's roar sounded slightly hurried. Only, Vermilion Bird, who was buried in the Sea of Fire, didn't give any response. Chi-Chi looked at its master helplessly. Master, Vermilion Bird is the most stingy. Earlier Master's words made it unhappy, so it intentionally hid. A sacred beast also knew how to throw a tantrum. Yiqing Luo looked at the Sea of Fire and waved her hand to let Chi-Chi come back. Yiqing Luo had long guessed that Vermilion Bird would not cooperate, so she wasn't surprised. Chi-Chi returned to Tong Ziqing's side and squatted on the ground as a pair of tiger eyes rolled around. Yiqing Luo walked to the place where Chi-Chi was standing earlier. Narrowing her eyes, she swept her gaze across the boundless Sea of Fire. Her fingers moved. A raging flame feather fan appeared on her fingertip. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as her profound chi condensed. The glower flame fan opened up and swept up several hurricanes. In a split second, the entire Sea of Fire raged. Several hurricanes swept up the Sea of Fire. As the hurricanes rotated more and more violently, that flame also followed the hurricanes and swept up. In just a short while, the heart meridian was completely engulfed by tornadoes one after another. The Sea of Fire rolled and the hurricanes raged. The ground gradually cracked open. Like a dense spider web, it spread out. Gui Wu and the others retreated a few steps back, before forming a barrier, blocking the sparks that filled the sky. Zoemo clicked his tongue as he laughed heartily. Student Yiqing Luo's way of doing things is indeed eye-opening. Only she can think of such a method, and only she dares to do it. That's the Vermilion Bird sacred beast. What she did, if she angered the Vermilion Bird sacred beast. Instructor Li looked at Yiqing Luo's ferocious actions and his heart was beating extremely quickly. She's trying to provoke the vermilion bird. Gui Wu narrowed his eyes as he stared deeply at Yiqing Luo. The corners of his lips actually revealed an extremely shallow smile. Just then, the sky was filled with hurricanes, tornadoes, and fiery winds. A furious and clear cry resounded through the 9 heavens. The sharp and clear cry was frightening. Soon after, a red shadow flapped its wings and flew out of the sea of fire. Surrounded by flames, the phoenix feathers overflowing with light and vibrant colors were exquisite beyond compare. Ugly woman! Vermilion Bird's angry voice rang out, its scarlet-red eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her lips curled into a cold smile. Why, you're willing to come out? Don't you want to continue being a coward? The flames in Vermilion Bird's eyes leaped for a moment. Whoa! Chi-Chi gave a low cry, warning Vermilion Bird. Clang clang, just as Chi-Chi's low cry sounded. Vermilion Bird flapped its wings and flew. With a swoosh, it turned into a bewitching red glow. It flew straight towards Yiqing Luo's face. Clang clang, clang 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 clang. The clear cry was extremely sharp. That imposing manner that flew over was like a continuous sea of fire, gushing over. A woo-woo! Chi-Chi's warning cry reverberated in their ears, accompanied by Yen Xiao-Yi and the others' panicked cries. Chapter 1525. Bam! A loud sound of collision was heard. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel that Vermilion Bird's huge body had crashed onto her. But she didn't feel the intense pain that she had imagined. On the contrary, an indescribable scorching feeling was burning her body. That scorching feeling was like balls of blazing fire, enveloping her entirely. Numerous airflow was released from the bottom of her feet, lingering into one after another whirlpool. Yiqing Luo let out a painful moan. There seemed to be something in her body, colliding against her limbs and bones. Her meridians were also expanding at this moment. She shut her eyes tightly. The scorching feeling and swelling feeling in her body had already made her consciousness become muddled. Yiqing Luo didn't know that the few people who were standing by the side, who were originally extremely worried, were now looking at her with disbelief and shock. They saw with their own eyes that Vermilion Bird which was burning in flames, charging towards Yiqing Luo. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to counterattack, Vermilion Bird had already crashed onto Yiqing Luo. Following that, they saw that huge, noble and elegant Vermilion Bird merging with Yiqing Luo in a split second. It could totally be considered as directly merging with Yiqing Luo as one. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body gradually floated above the sea of flames. A ball of flames enveloped her entirely. Strong, profound qi turned into bursts of energy, encircling the surroundings of the flames, revolving non-stop. This was obviously the rhythm of advancement. Dmo Xian's footsteps, which had already taken a step forward, stopped on the spot. A pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes gazed deeply at the lady in midair. Vermilion Bird and Lil Luo signed the contract. He let out a low chuckle. His laughter was filled with doting and joy towards Yiqing Luo. Who would have thought that the Vermilion Bird who originally looked down on Yiqing Luo and had challenged her several times would choose to sign the contract with Yiqing Luo at this moment? Yiqing Luo's attitude towards Vermilion Bird was absolutely not good. How could a tsundere like Vermilion Bird make such a choice? Almost everyone present felt that Vermilion Bird was about to attack Yiqing Luo. They had not expected Vermilion Bird to sign the contract with Yiqing Luo. Vermilion Bird was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Sign a contract with Vermilion Bird. The Vermilion Bird's power fused with Yiqing Luo's profound Jade Heart's power. From then on, it caused the energy within Yiqing Luo's body to keep on increasing explosively, attaining the opportunity to advance. Rumble! An earth-shattering thunderous sound fell into everyone's ears clearly. The entire land of the roots started to shake under this shocking thunder. The stones with sparks on the rock wall also fell down piece by piece. Instructor Luo and Instructor Li looked at each other. He could no longer suppress his excitement. Lightning tribulation. This is a lightning tribulation. Someone is about to advance to the profound sky realm. Heavens! Sky Mystic Supreme, is it student Yiqing Luo? In the Nirvana realm, practitioners above the profound sky realm had already stepped into the ranks of world-shaking experts. However, if a profound practitioner wanted to advance to the sky profound realm, he would have to go through the lightning tribulation. This lightning tribulation was a test that every profound rank cultivator had to endure after reaching the profound sky realm. Once he passed the lightning tribulation, he would be able to successfully advance. Instructor Li and Instructor Luo couldn't hide their shock. Yiqing Luo was just a 15-year-old young lady. She had the divine dragon, contracted with the white tiger sacred beast, and now there was a vermilion bird sacred beast. Even directly advanced to the profound sky realm. This luck was simply heaven-defying. How could ordinary people live in this world, other than Yiqing Luo, who was so heaven-defying? Chapter 1526. Yiqing Luo couldn't feel anything from the outside world. The scorching and expanding feeling in her body kept washing over her. Gradually, Yiqing Luo sensed a burst of vigorous energy erupting from her profound jade heart. Yiqing Luo was the clearest about this feeling. Not long ago, she had just experienced this feeling. During the battle with the Imperial Palace's granny, she successfully advanced to Earth Profound 9th grade in the nick of time. This feeling was exactly the same as when she was advancing. Was she going to advance again? Yiqing Luo's consciousness gradually recovered. The scene of Vermilion Bird crashing into her appeared in her mind. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She concentrated and sensed. Indeed, in her pet space, she felt Vermilion Bird's presence. Vermilion Bird and her signed a life and death contract. The same contract as Chi. To tell the truth, signing a contract with Vermilion Bird was out of Yiqing Luo's expectations. But it was also considered as unexpected. Everything depended on the relationship between Vermilion Bird and Chi. Even if Vermilion Bird agreed to sign a contract with her for Chi, it would at most be an equal contract. She had not expected Vermilion Bird to use its own soul to forcefully sign a life and death contract with her. Didn't Vermilion Bird especially hate her? If they signed a life and death contract, Vermilion Bird would follow her forever, unable to leave. Vermilion Bird didn't give any reply to her question. The pet space was quiet, there was no sound at all. Yiqing Luo expressed. She really couldn't understand the sacred beast's thoughts. Towards such a willful Vermilion Bird, what else could she say? Ugly woman, what nonsense are you still thinking about? If you fail to advance, this sacred beast shall see how you advance in future. Vermilion Bird's shrill voice was filled with disdain, as though it despised Yiqing Luo for thinking about all sorts of things at this critical juncture, not absorbing the surrounding spiritual qi to coordinate with her advancement. Yiqing Luo stabilized her state of mind. She started to concentrate fully, welcoming the impact of the advancement. The thunder tribulation was still ongoing. Yiqing Luo's aura kept rising. Profound qi rose sharply, extremely turbulent. The crowd were all sighing with emotion. Yiqing Luo's life was really good. Right now, they were in the depths of the blazing flame nest. The thunder tribulation couldn't strike in at all. In other words, Yiqing Luo didn't need to endure the thunder calamity, she just needed to absorb the spiritual qi to advance. Unknowingly, an hour had passed in a flash. Yiqing Luo's entire body surged with a powerful profound qi. A terrifying aura instantly filled the entire heart meridian. This aura hadn't even formed yet. In the next instant there was nothing left. At the same time, Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly opened wide. Her arms trembled. A wave of qi spread out in the air in the form of invisible ripples. Yiqing Luo felt that her body was extremely relaxed and long. It was as if there was an endless stream of spiritual energy spreading through his meridians. Even his breathing became much smoother and more relaxed. This time round of advancement, Yiqing Luo wasn't like before, jumping a few grades. The 9th grade of the Earth Profound Realm was promoted to the 1st grade of the Sky Profound Realm. Yiqing Luo thought that if she wanted to advance to the Sky Profound grade, she would need at least a few years before she could find this opportunity. Unexpectedly, on the same day, she directly advanced to the Sky Profound Realm. One had to know that there were at least 100 masters in the world who were known as unworldly masters. They would never be able to break through this barrier and step into the Sky Profound Supreme Realm even if they spent their entire lives. Chapter 1527. Little Luo. Seeing Yiqing Luo's surrounding aura gradually stabilized, Dmo Xian immediately went forward and pulled Yiqing Luo into his arms. It was extremely gentle, filled with worry and anxiety. His profound energy was roaming around her body. He checked her body to see if she was injured. After confirming that she was unscathed, even the external injuries she had suffered from the Imperial Palace's old granny had completely healed. He heaved a sigh of relief. Ah Xian, I've advanced. Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with surprise. She couldn't believe it herself. She was actually this lucky. This trip to the flame lair was a trip to level up for her. Dmo Xian hugged her delicate body tightly, his voice hoarse. I know. His heart was still unable to calm down. Heavens knew how much willpower he had used to restrain himself from rushing forward and pulling Yiqing Luo into his arms. The moment Vermilion Bird rushed towards Yiqing Luo, for the first time in his life, he felt a suffocating sense of anxiety. Yiqing Luo was enveloped in flames as she fell into the tribulation of advancement, let out a groan of pain. His heart ached fiercely, but he knew that he couldn't go up at this moment and disturb Yiqing Luo. This was the opportunity for Yiqing Luo to advance to the Sky Profound grade. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He also hoped that Yiqing Luo could gradually mature. To become a powerhouse, one had to experience pain. Yiqing Luo leaned against his chest. She could smell the elegant sandalwood scent on his body. She closed her eyes slightly. Sky Profound Realm, she had finally become a profound practitioner of the Sky Profound Realm. Finally, she was one step closer to Dmo Xian. Student Yiqing Luo. A deep voice sounded out, interrupting the two of them from snuggling together. Yiqing Luo lifted her eyes from Dmo Xian's arms and looked at Gui Wu. Since you've already formed a contract with the Vermilion Bird, let's get the Vermilion Bird to tell us how to leave this place. Gui Wu's expression was cold. The students are still waiting for us. Yiqing Luo nodded her head. Now was not the time to stay here. It's not like there aren't any ways to leave. A sharp voice rang beside Yiqing Luo's ears. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and saw a palm-sized bird standing on her shoulder. He looked at it up close. The phoenix feathers were as red as fire, and there were even red electric currents flowing through them. What way? Yiqing Luo asked. The Vermilion Bird shook its small head. Its scarlet eyes were like two fiery red gems, dazzling and dazzling. Ugly woman, you should know that this place is the underground heart vein of the flame nest. This place concerns the lifeline of the entire flame nest. Yiqing Luo couldn't understand why Vermilion Bird would give her such a nickname. No matter how he looked at it, the word ugly didn't seem to fit her at all. Vermilion Bird paused and looked at her with disdain. Ugly woman, don't look at this holy beast with such ugly eyes. Although this holy beast has a contract with you, this holy beast is not like Little White, who has no bottom line. Ao. Chi retorted with a low growl. Enough. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and knocked on Vermilion Bird's head mercilessly. Tell me the main point. Vermilion Bird was like a little bird, chirping and jumping on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. That pair of wings flapped open and a scorching hot wind blew against Yi Qing Luo's face. Chapter 1528. Being Tsundere once was cute. Being Tsundere twice was fun. But being Tsundere 3 times, 4 times, or even countless times, that would make one sick of it. So what if Vermilion Bird was a sacred beast? Since it had already chosen to sign a life and death contract with her, then it should know its own position. He could bring out his incomparably noble identity as a sacred beast at any time and place. But it must have forgotten about it. It was no longer the Vermilion Bird from 10,000 years ago who could summon the wind and rain, and just a cry could shake the heavens and earth. It was just a battle pet that she, Yi Qing Luo, had signed a contract with. That was all. Yi Qing Luo's threat made Vermilion Bird's scarlet-red eyes surging with flames. It flapped its little wings and flew one round around Yi Qing Luo. Ugly woman, don't think that you can do anything to me just because I have signed a contract with you. I am telling you, I am willing to sign a contract with you because I can't bear to be separated from Little White, so I lowered my status. How dare you try to take advantage of me? It gave a cold snort, flapped its wings and flew towards the direction of the Sea of Fire. But, after Vermilion Bird's wings flapped for some time, it realized that it had not moved an inch. Immediately following that, its tail was violently dragged back by a huge force. Vermilion Bird turned its head. His eyes met with a pair of enchanting eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. Yi Qing Luo's hand was tugging its tail. He pulled it back mercilessly. The strength was so strong that Vermilion Bird couldn't help but let out a painful cry. The crowd was stunned. That was a Vermilion Bird sacred beast. How could Yi Qing Luo be so ruthless? Or, because Yi Qing Luo had an obedient sacred beast in her hand, so she didn't care about the other sacred beasts? Yi Qing Luo didn't have the mood to probe into the instructor's heart. At this moment, she was staring at the Vermilion Bird, which was still flapping its wings in her hand. Her eyes sunk slightly. She wanted to subdue Vermilion Bird. But what she needed was an obedient battle pet. If after signing a contract with her, Vermilion Bird had to maintain this high and mighty state, in the future it would be even more difficult to get along. After that, he had a conflict with the Vermilion Bird, causing Chi-Chi to be caught in a dilemma. It would be better to either subdue the Vermilion Bird, or leave it here. However, Yi Qing Luo could roughly guess that Vermilion Bird would absolutely not be willing to stay in such a dark place. Otherwise, as the Vermilion Bird had said, it was doing this for Chi-Chi's sake. As long as he signed an equal contract with her, he would be able to be with Mu Chi-Chi. This life and death contract. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but ponder over Vermilion Bird's motive. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo grabbed the Vermilion Bird's tail, hung it upside down and walked directly towards the direction of the Sea of Fire. Since you've signed a contract with me, then treat me as your master. I won't keep any perverse companions by my side. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards slightly, but her squinted eyes didn't contain any hint of a smile. Since you're so against me, then I shall use my master's identity to announce the first mission. You, Vermilion Bird, forever guard the heart vein until I come again. Yi Qing Luo enunciated each word clearly and calmly. As soon as she finished speaking, she spread her fingers. The red bird in her hand fell into the Sea of Fire. Yi Qing Luo turned around and walked away suavely. Let's go, let's find the exit. The two instructors looked at Yi Qing Luo in a daze, totally unable to react in time. Chapter 1529. Yi Qing Luo was too lazy to care about their reactions. She walked to Dmo Xian's side, held his arm and walked towards the direction of the heart vein entrance. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Yi Qing Luo silently counted in her heart. Immediately, when she counted to the 6th step, she raised her eyes and revealed a sly smile. At the same time, a sharp voice behind her spoke quickly. The way to leave the land of the root vein is to cross this Sea of Fire. The exit is at the end of the Sea of Fire, Without this sacred beast's help, none of you will be able to cross this sea of fire. Vermilion Bird's small body flew out of the sea of fire. Yi-Ching Luo paused her footsteps, slowly turned her head, and looked at Vermilion Bird with a smile. I have more than one sacred beast. If you can cross the sea of fire, Chi-Chi can too. Moreover, my Xian's war pet is a nine-tailed fox. Nine-tailed fox also belonged to the fire attribute. Because of Vermilion Bird, the sea of fire would not hurt Chi-Chi. And the nine-tailed fox would not be afraid of this level of fire. Vermilion Bird's flapping wings paused slightly. That pair of red beast eyes stared fiercely at Diamo Xian. It thought, as long as it said it, it would be the only opportunity to leave the land of the root vein. If Yi-Ching Luo wanted to leave, she had to please it. But this ugly woman... He was really cunning to the extreme. She was exactly the same as that ugly woman 10,000 years ago, tricking a beast without a word of disagreement. It gritted its teeth and said fiercely, "If not for this sacred beast's escort, those flame beasts will absolutely swallow you up, not even leaving bones behind." Yi-Ching Luo touched her chin and nodded. "What you said is very reasonable. All right, I will reluctantly let you escort." Vermilion Bird only felt that there was an unknown flame burning fiercely in its heart. Damn it, Yi-Ching Luo deliberately waited for it to say this? Damn it. Could it regret? Could it regret that it was so stupid to sign a life and death contract with Yi-Ching Luo? No matter how it cursed in its heart, Vermilion Bird still suppressed the displeasure in its heart and became a mount. Alright, so be it as a mount. But why was it carrying a few big men on its back? Instructor Luo, Instructor Li, Ghost Martial Artist, and Zhou Mo, who was holding Kitty Li, were all on Vermilion Bird's back. If there was only Yi-Ching Luo on his back, then it could only be said that she was his master's mount. But what right did a group of lowly humans have to sit on its noble back? The Vermilion Bird felt that its dignity as a sacred beast had been trampled underfoot by this group of humans. The Vermilion Bird expressed that it also had dignity, could also go berserk. Vermilion Bird, I advise you to listen to Master. Long Yunzhan, who was carefully carrying Tong Ziqing, was on Chi-Chi's back. It walked to the Vermilion Bird's side and whispered in beast language. This ugly woman is simply a she-devil. The Vermilion Bird cried out angrily, she's even more insane than that she-devil from 10,000 years ago. Chi-Chi shook her head. Master is actually very easy to get along with. You will understand Chi-Chi's words after being with Master for a long time. The Vermilion Bird snorted. I think I might never be able to understand. Chi-Chi didn't continue persuading it, but only reminded, if you want to stay by Master's side, you'd better listen to Master, otherwise. Chi-Chi can guarantee that your days will be even more miserable than today. This is advice from you, who had been ravaged by the she-devil. The Vermilion Bird's red eyes were filled with disdain. Chapter 1530. The Vermilion Bird expressed, can you still have some backbone as a holy beast? Whether Vermilion Bird was willing or not. In the end, the Vermilion Bird still carried the few men on her back and rushed above the sea of fire. Chi-Chi carried Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing on her back, as well as the unconscious Zhu Wuxin. Yi-Ching Luo and Diamo Xian sat on Little Nine's back as they followed behind. The Saint Beast was extremely fast. In a short moment, the three beasts had already crossed a large sea of fire. As far as the eye could see, in all directions was a sea of fire that stretched as far as the eye could see. Vermilion Bird, let me give you a name. Yi-Ching Luo sat cross-legged on the back of the nine-tailed fox and stared at the figure of the Vermilion Bird. I can't call you Vermilion Bird in front of outsiders. What's wrong with Vermilion Bird? Those stupid humans have to kneel and beg for mercy when they hear my name. The Vermilion Bird snorted. It didn't think there was anything wrong with its name. Yi-Ching Luo directly ignored Vermilion Bird's words and held her chin. Ah Xian, Chi-Chi is called Chi-Chi, what do you think? It is called Baba, what do you think? Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with adoration. That's great. This holy beast doesn't want to be called Baba. How can such a lame name highlight the majesty of this sacred beast? The vermilion bird immediately cried out. After it finished howling, it recalled that Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about it. Then, it continued to roar, "Even if I die, I won't call myself Baba. If you give this sacred beast this name, this sacred beast will perish together with you." It spun around and stopped in front of Yi Qing Luo. The crimson eyes of the beast were wide open. He looked as if he was unafraid of death. It was as if making it call Baba was more serious than taking its life. Yi Qing Luo, why did she feel that her naming ability was pretty good? 7788. How simple and crude was that? Chi-Chi nodded, agreeing with her master's point of view. It especially liked the name its master gave it. Chi-Yen. A low voice came from not far in front of them. Yi Qing Luo looked towards the direction of the voice and saw Ghost Marshal looking expressionlessly in their direction. Chi-Yen. Yi Qing Luo murmured these two words. Was this the name that Gui Wu had given the vermilion bird? It was indeed not bad. All right. In the future, vermilion bird's name will be Chi-Yen. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand and decided on the name vermilion bird. Chi-Yen, aren't you going to thank Master Gui Wu for giving you this name? The word bestowed. It pierced vermilion bird's ears. But thinking of the names Chi-Yen and Baba, it clenched its teeth and chose to abandon its bottom line, abandon its moral integrity, and arrogantly snorted in the direction of the ghost martial artist. This holy beast likes your name very much. This holy beast will reluctantly use this name. Yi Qing Luo, she felt that vermilion bird's name should be Qiaojiao. After the name was decided, Yi Qing Luo looked down at the rolling magma and the flaming beast that would pop its head out from time to time and wave its arms. At the base of the fire lair. Wherever there was fire, there would be fire beasts. Those fire beasts were clearly exuding an extremely strong killing intent. It was as if it wanted to charge forward and drag them into the sea of fire, engulfing them completely. If Chi-Yen wasn't here, Yi Qing Luo believed that these fire beasts would absolutely not be courteous. Chi-Yen, those cultivators who headed towards the fire lair were all engulfed by the fire beasts? Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she seemed to have thought of something as she opened her mouth to ask. After the Imperial Tutor's prophecy, large groups of cultivators flocked into the fire lair. But none of them survived. At the base, Yi Qing Luo didn't see any bones or any traces of other cultivators. Chapter 1531. This sacred beast hasn't been awake for a long time, but, during this period of time when this sacred beast was awake, I indeed sensed quite a number of foolish humans, coming wave after wave to die. Mentioning this matter, Chi-Yan's tone turned grave. Those profound practitioners were indeed burned by the flaming beasts to the point where not even their bones were left. Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian exchanged glances. Their guess was indeed right. The terror of the flame nest wasn't in the flame nest, but in the depths of the flame nest, which was the foundation ground. But how did those cultivators enter the flame nest's foundation ground? Didn't Old Man Tsang say? They were sucked into the foundation ground because of the profound qi battle between Zhu Wu Xian and Dmo Xian, which led to the flame nest activating its self-protection mechanism. Those cultivators, how could they activate the flame nest's self-protection mechanism? Those foolish humans, to be able to enter the foundation ground is indeed very strange, and there's another point, which is also very strange. Vermilion Bird said, although the flame beast is the guardian beast of the foundation ground, but before it gets close to the heart vein, the flame beast will absolutely not casually launch an attack. But, after those cultivators entered the foundation ground, the flame beast seemed to have gone mad, swallowing all the cultivators. Yi Qing Luo caught the main point. What you mean is, the flame beast's rampage is not so simple? These foolish humans died, this sacred beast doesn't care, So whether it's simple or not, this sacred beast doesn't have a deep understanding. Vermilion bird spread out its phoenix wings, swaying a stretch of seductive ripples. This sacred beast only knows, after swallowing 3 batches of foolish humans, no one else came again. 3 batches? And in batches? Which meant the number of people who were swallowed by the flame beast was extremely large. But, thinking about it, it made sense. Yiqing Luo had crossed hands with the flame beast, and understood how powerful it was. Especially that ability which kept on deriving, no matter how strong the person was, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Those cultivators, naturally wouldn't be as lucky as them. Following Chi-Chi's directions, they found the heart vein, and using Chi-Chi's relationship, they obtained Vermilion Bird's protection. Those flame beasts wanted to swallow them, but they feared Vermilion Bird's prestige. This holy beast has another strange matter. Qi Yan turned to look at Yiqing Luo, pointed to her with his sharp mouth, and swept over Dmo Xian, you, and it then looked in Zhu Wuxin's direction. The 3 of you are very strange. What's wrong? Yiqing Luo asked. After they were sucked into the foundation, they were entangled by the flame beast. Qi Yan swung his colorful phoenix tail and gestured to the group of people on his back. And the flame beast has never entangled you. Instructor Luo immediately nodded. Yes. After we were sucked in, we were entangled by several flame beasts. Fortunately, Master Gui Wu was there. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have been devoured by the flame beast. Wave after wave of flaming beasts. Now that they thought about it, their scalps still felt numb. Yiqing Luo fell into deep thoughts. After she was sucked into the foundation, she did not encounter any flame beasts. After meeting Zhu Wu Xian, they met Dmo Xian. At the very least, he hadn't encountered any flame beasts in the past few hours. And the appearance of the flame beast, just as they were about to find the heart meridian under Chi-Chi's guidance, all of a sudden, it appeared. Following that, it was wave after wave. And the number kept on increasing. Chapter 1532. These flame beasts are indeed acting strangely today. Qi Yan lowered his head and looked at the magma, constantly waving his arms as if he wanted to rush up. Ugly woman, what have you done to these flame beasts? Yiqing Luo still didn't respond to Qi Yan's words. She pondered deeply for a moment and raised her eyes to look at Dmo Xian as she lowered her voice. Ah Xian, could it be? She already had a guess in her heart. Dmo Xian's expression was calm as he nodded. Don't worry, I'm here, don't be afraid. Dmo Xian nodded. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped loudly. South Waves Continent, Flame Nest. It was the Heavenly Dean and the Dark Forces Wolf Saint Technique and Yiqing Jian who had decided to extract all the students' souls here and offer them to the King of Darkness. In other words, coincidentally, the Dean of the General Academy had invited Gui Wu and Zhou Mo to train the students of the various academies. The Heavenly Dean didn't need to think of any excuses. Gui Wu immediately brought the students to the Flame Lair. Wolf Saint Art and Yiqing Qian had long been prepared to extract the students' souls here. Naturally, he was already prepared. The reason why these flaming beasts were so violent was most likely related to the dark forces. Thinking about it, the profound practitioners of the various great forces who had swarmed into the fire lair must have had their souls extracted by the dark forces with the help of the flame beasts. If that was the case, the dark forces were too cruel. Not only the corpses, but the flaming beasts had also devoured them, leaving nothing behind. Even their souls would become food for the King of Darkness. He thought that this matter might be related to the dark forces. Yiqing Luo immediately urged Qi Yan to speed up and lead the way. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo were by her side. As for the students, other than the 2 instructors, there were only the elders from the headquarters. If they encountered the dark forces, they would definitely not be a match for the dark forces. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression suddenly congealed. Gui Wu, who had been paying close attention to Yiqing Luo, his eyes gradually darkened. And the proud Qi Yan, listening to Yi Qing Luo's constant urging, the rebellious thoughts made it deliberately slow down its own speed. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. If not for the fact that Qi Aojiao was carrying the ghost doctor and the rest on her back, she would definitely kick it into the sea of fire. Of course, the reason why Yi Qing Luo was so anxious, it wasn't that she cared about the students from the various academies. She had absolute confidence that if the dark forces really took the opportunity to attack the students, they would not be able to escape. The students of the devil class would definitely think of a way to escape. The reason why she urged Qi Yan to speed up like this, it was because she did not want the dark forces' conspiracy to succeed. Right now, the King of Darkness needed a large number of young men and women's souls as food to unlock the so-called seal. The moment the King of Darkness undid the seal, he would die. The strength of the dark forces would definitely have a qualitative leap. At that time, it wouldn't be as easy to deal with as it was now. The dark forces were obviously very interested in her. He wanted to obtain her profound heart jade by every possible means. He wanted to take her away again. What would happen if the dark forces were allowed to develop? Yi Qing Luo didn't want to find trouble for herself. It was better to do it before trouble came. He wanted to cut off this source of trouble first. Most importantly, Yi Qing Luo had a premonition. Chapter 1533. That King of Darkness who was addressed as King by the dark forces would appear in this world. Otherwise, the dark forces would not take such a huge risk to plan with the Heavenly Academy to let the various academy students be buried in the blaze nest. After all, once something happened to the various academy students, the students' families would definitely investigate thoroughly and would not let it go easily. The dark forces dared to set up such a plan. They would definitely think of a way to retaliate. Then, the only way was to shock them with their abilities. Yi Qing Luo's tone was icy cold as she prepared to threaten them. A deep and cold voice interrupted her before she could say anything. Speed up immediately and leave this place. That voice was thick and powerful. Everyone's gazes converged towards that direction. Even the unconscious Tong Ziqing and Zhu Wu Xin were awakened by that voice. It was Gui Wu. His face was cold and sunken as a pair of malicious eyes were suffused with a biting cold glint. That invisible imposing manner made one's back turn cold as they submitted themselves to him. Even Qi Yan was intimidated by this imposing manner. With a flap of his wings, he subconsciously increased his flying speed. Chi and Little Nine immediately caught up. For a moment, the atmosphere was silent as no one spoke a word. On Chi's back, Tong Ziqing was awoken by Gui Wu's low growl. The minute she opened her eyes, she felt an intense pain all over her body. Her back felt as if there were densely packed ants wriggling incessantly, bringing with it an unbearable piercing pain. She moved as her brows creased tightly. But her hands were unable to move. Tong Ziqing struggled. "Don't move." A deep voice rang beside her ear. That voice was so familiar that it made her heart tremble. The pained expression on his face froze in that instant. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. Following that, she opened her eyes. An extremely handsome but expressionless face was reflected in her pupils. Tong Ziqing's eyelashes trembled even more. Her eyes revealed a sliver of astonishment, as though she couldn't believe the person in front of her. "You're injured, don't move." Long Yunzhan saw the young lady in his arms staring at him without blinking, as though she was in a daze, so he opened his mouth to explain. "Qing Luo has already taken a look for you, bear with it for this period of time and the wound on your back will be healed." But what he said, Tong Ziqing didn't seem to hear it. Her eyes were filled with an infatuated luster as she stared straight at Long Yunzhan. Those azure blue eyes were as clear as ice. But for some reason, she felt a sense of satisfaction in her heart. She raised her hand, her fingers trembling, wanting to touch the face that was so close to her. He wanted to make sure that everything before him wasn't a dream. Only in her dreams would Long Yunjian be by her side. It was only in his dreams that the person reflected in Long Yunjian's eyes would be her. The moment Tong Ziqing raised her hand, she felt a heart-wrenching pain that made her face twitch in pain. Long Yunjian immediately stopped her and comforted her in a low voice. Ziqing, I'm here, don't move. After you recover, you can do whatever you want. Her voice was still cold and clear. But Tong Ziqing heard some gentleness. That's right, gentleness. From Long Yunjian she could actually see the gentleness that belonged to her. Tong Ziqing shut her eyes as a bitter smile appeared on her lips. This was indeed a dream. How could Long Yunjian possibly treat her gently? This dream was so real that she knew it was a dream. Chapter 1534. Ziqing. Seeing that she had closed her eyes, Long Yunjian immediately called out Tong Ziqing's name worriedly. He frowned slightly, thinking that Tong Ziqing had closed her eyes because she couldn't bear the pain from her wounds. After waiting for a long time, Tong Ziqing did not reply. Long Yunjian immediately hugged her shoulders tightly, and his voice became even softer. Ziqing, where do you feel uncomfortable? Or does the wound hurt badly? That soft whispering voice. Instantly, Tong Ziqing's eyes turned red. When had Long Yunjian ever spoken in such a gentle voice? Even when facing Yiqing Luo, Long Yunjian was still expressionless, calm and indifferent. But at this moment, he was so gentle, he could hear the tension in Long Yunjian's voice. She could also feel how unnatural the tight muscles of the right arm that was wrapped around her were. Long Yunjian wasn't used to being gentle, but to her, he tried his best to be gentle. Such gentleness, not only did it not satisfy Tong Ziqing's heart, on the contrary, it made her want to cry. They were not tears of joy. Instead, she herself did not understand the tears. This dream was too real. Unknowingly, Tong Ziqing felt that the corners of her eyes were actually a little wet. Ziqing. Long Yunjian panicked. The tears at the corner of Tong Ziqing's eyes seeped into his palm. Long Yunjian, who had never taken care of a lady, instantly stretched out his hand helplessly as he wiped the corners of Tong Ziqing's eyes, as he opened his mouth dryly. Ziqing, tell me if you're not feeling well. Qing Luo is just beside you, you can, class leader. Tong Ziqing choked with sobs, her voice extremely hoarse. Long Yunjian immediately stopped speaking. Tong Ziqing moved her lips. Long Yunjian's figure was vaguely reflected in her tearful eyes. Class leader, don't be so gentle with me, I'm scared. She was already choking on her last few words. Long Yunjian's body stiffened. His azure blue eyes flickered with a gloomy luster. Tong Ziqing's extremely pale face was like a weeping beauty. No matter how one looked at it, it made one's heart ache. Don't be gentle with her? Is she afraid of his gentleness? Women were really hard to understand. Qing Luo told him to treat Ziqing gently. But Ziqing rejected his gentleness. Long Yunjian was truly unable to understand Tong Ziqing's thoughts. However, when he saw how Tong Ziqing tried to hold back her tears, she couldn't help but cry. Somewhere in her heart, there was a faint, throbbing pain. He slowly loosened his grip and placed Tong Ziqing in Chi-Chi's fur. The moment Tong Ziqing landed on Chi-Chi's back, she shrunk to the side. It seemed like he didn't want to come into contact with Long Yunjian at all. Long Yunjian's outstretched hand froze in midair, looking at that delicate body that was trembling uncontrollably. In the end, he withdrew his hand and sat to the side, quietly watching Tong Ziqing. His mind was filled with countless thoughts. Tong Ziqing sobbed silently. Tears soaked Chi-Chi's fur and stuck to her face. She didn't know why she was crying. He also didn't understand why he had to avoid Long Yunjian. She clearly begged Long Yunjian to get close to her. He clearly wanted to get Long Yunjian's attention. However, when Long Yunjian's gentleness towards her made her realize that everything was not a dream, his heart sank into a state of anxiety and unease. She blocked a move for Long Yunjian and was almost engulfed by the flames, turning into ashes. It wasn't because she wanted to exchange for Long Yunjan's sympathy. Chapter 1535. If it was only because of this that Long Yunjan felt guilty towards her, she would rather not have this gentleness. Long Yunjan continued to treat her gently. She was afraid that she would get used to this gentleness and sink into it. At that time, he would never be able to extricate himself. There were no more words between the two of them. Zhu Wuxin, who was lying behind Qi-Qi, looked coldly at the two people in front of him. In his heart, he snorted disdainfully at the relationship between the two. The woman clearly loved the man. However, she had no choice but to push the man away. And the man clearly cared about the woman. However, he didn't say anything to comfort her for a long time and really left the woman. Even he, who had never cared about the affairs between men and women, knew. A woman's words usually didn't match her heart. Tell him not to be so gentle. The subtext was for him to be more gentle. Chu Wuxin was extremely disdainful of such feelings. In his opinion, since you like someone, that person must belong to him. He wanted him to see the woman he loved deeply with another man. He could not be that magnanimous. Not to mention, she was bashful and didn't even dare to say that she liked him. Even dare not say the love. Is it really love? Zhu Wu Xian gave a cold laugh, as he immediately turned his vision towards one side, towards Yiqing Luo, who was sitting on the back of the nine-tailed fox, snuggling up to Dmo Xian. The cold light in his eyes was faintly discernible. We're here. With a clear cry, the scarlet flaming wings brought a gust of strong wind. Soon after, everyone felt a scorching wave of air pressing down on their faces. We're out. Zoemo carried Kitty Lee and jumped down from Scarlet Flame's back. He glanced around the room. This was the place where they had been sucked into the foundation ground. It was that piece of land which had been turned into ruins by Yiqing Luo and Imperial Palace's granny, as well as Zhu Wu Xian and Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo and the others came down from the sacred beast's back. When everyone was standing on the ground, Shi and Dmo Xian then kept their respective sacred beasts properly. Let's return to the outer perimeter first. After Gui Wu said those words, his figure flashed as he hurriedly rushed back in the direction he had come from. His pace was extremely fast, and the expression on his face was serious. Clearly, Gui Wu had also sensed the danger. Hey, all wait for me. Before Zoemo could finish his words, Gui Wu's figure had already disappeared from everyone's sight. Zoemo clicked his tongue and muttered to himself, "He's so impatient again. Only I can stand his character." Then, he lowered his eyes. His almond-shaped eyes were glowing as he stared at the person in his arms. His slender fingers hooked around her chin. "Little wildcat, this young master will go take a look at Ao's condition first. After that, this young master will personally train you." "Bah! Frivolous man, hurry up and let go of Kitty. Kitty won't train with you." Kitty Lee gritted her teeth and glared at him angrily. This time, Zoemo didn't act the same as before. She took the opportunity to attack Kitty Lee. He took the opportunity to tease Kitty Lee. He really put Kitty Lee on the ground. "You!" Kitty Lee stared at Zoemo in astonishment. She couldn't believe that this frivolous man would really let go of her. Only, her astonishment didn't last for more than a few breaths. In the eyes that were like the vast sea of stars, the extremely devilish face suddenly enlarged. Following that, Zoemo's warm, thin lips landed in between Kitty Lee's brows. That touch was extremely soft and warm, as though this kiss had fallen right into her heart. Kitty Lee's heart suddenly pounded. Before she could react, the figure in front of her had already disappeared. Chapter 1536. Kitty Lee stood there in a daze. She could still vaguely hear Zoemo's whisper in her ear. He said, "When the training starts, the kisses won't stop here." Her cheeks were inexplicably dyed red. It was as if she was on fire, making her extremely shy. By the time she regained her senses, Kitty Lee saw Yiqing Luo and Yan Xiao Yi's mischievous smiles. Kitty Lee stomped her feet angrily. That frivolous man, he actually flirted with Kitty again. Kitty must bite him to death. This chop caused Kitty Lee to be stunned once again. The injuries she had suffered at the hands of the Imperial Palace's old granny had completely healed. If she was still in the Foundation Land, it would be difficult for her to even stand. Therefore, whether it was fighting against the flaming beasts or walking on foot, Zoemo continued to hold her in his arms. But now, she just kept stomping her feet. He did not feel any pain coming from his body. He circulated his Xian Qi in his body. His external and internal injuries were indeed completely healed. Was it Zoemo? The expression on Kitty Lee's face was rather complicated. Let's rush back to the wooden shed to take a look at the situation. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to bother about what happened between Li Mao and Zoemo. From Zoemo's attitude, Yiqing Luo didn't feel any bit of malicious intent. As the princess of the Cat-Beast clan, Kitty Lee's perception was the strongest. Although she said that she disliked Zoemo very much, but if she really felt Zoemo's malice with Kitty Lee's fierce nature, she would definitely not let Zoemo do anything to her, even if it meant perishing together. Right now, the most important thing was to get back to the wooden shed. He wanted to see if the students had been taken advantage of by the dark forces. The group of people immediately followed the path they came from and hurriedly rushed back. Not far from the wooden shed, there was an open space that could hold about 5,000 people. More than 1,000 students were undergoing excruciating torture. They had already run 5 laps around this place. He ran until he was out of breath. Instructor Ren and Instructor Fong did not give them any time to rest. Then, he arranged the next squat training, followed by a set of physical training. There were 5 types of physical training. After the training of these 5 categories, Li Tianlan was stunned. Only then could he enter the stage of Qi training. These students were suffering unspeakably. There were already quite a number of students who lost their ability to move after running 5 laps and directly fainted. Some students were already out of breath and fell to the ground when they reached the second segment of squats. There were also students who had an advantage and managed to reach the 4th category. Of the students who managed to achieve the 4th category, at least 20 of them were students from the Devil class, mixed with a few students from other academies. Zi Qianqian, who was still in the 2nd category, panted heavily. She kept squatting and standing up, squatting and standing up. Their hearts were on the brink of collapse. Yiqing Luo, that slut. We are suffering here, but she ran away. Zi Qianqian gritted his teeth in anger. Su Xiaolian was standing by the side, as she was so tired that her forehead was filled with sweat. Goddess Qianqian, Master Gui Wu and Instructor Zhou have personally gone to catch that slut Yiqing Luo. When they return, that slut's reputation will definitely be swept clean. Zi Qianqian's face turned gloomy as he thought of how carefree and unfettered Yiqing Luo might be right now. The jealousy and hatred in his heart grew. Chapter 1537. Su Xiaolian's expression stiffened slightly as she pursed her lips in grievance. Goddess Qianqian, I am. She had obviously followed Zi Qianqian's instructions. This did not achieve the desired effect. How could she be blamed for this? But after meeting Zi Qianqian's cold eyes, Su Xiaolian cleverly kept her mouth shut. She turned and pleaded in a low voice. It's my fault. Goddess Qianqian, it's all my fault, I'm useless, please don't be angry with me. She was now on Zi Qianqian's side. Several actions had provoked public anger. The other students of the Heavenly Academy wanted to skin her alive the moment they saw her. The only person Su Xiaolian could rely on now was Zi Qianqian. Zi Qianqian snorted coldly as her willowy eyebrows knitted tightly together. She turned her head away as if she didn't want to pay attention to Su Xiaolian. Su Xiaolian was flustered. After a few rounds of pleading, Zi Qianqian's expression still did not ease. She bit her lower lip as if she had made a difficult decision. Goddess Qianqian, if you really want that slut's life, I have a way. Zi Qianshan glanced at her disdainfully. What way do you have? Come with me to see someone. Su Xiaolian clenched her fist as if she thought of that person, and her delicate body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Zi Qianshan didn't notice Su Xiaolian's abnormality. But when he heard her say this, his tone was obviously a lot more dignified. Zi Qianshan raised her brows. Who? Who can help me take that slut's life? You will know when you get there. Su Xiaolian saw Zi Qianshan's interest and immediately persuaded. Goddess Qianshan, I will not let you down again. Looking at Su Xiaolian's firm eyes and her pleading look, Zi Qianshan pondered suspiciously. If Su Xiaolian had someone she could rely on, how could he possibly be entangled around her? But looking at Su Xiaolian's expression, it didn't seem like she was lying. Could it be Su Xiaolian really had a way to find someone to take Yiqing Luo's life? If she was able to kill Yiqing Luo and not suspect her, it wasn't impossible for him to meet the person that Su Xiaolian was talking about. In any case, Su Xiaolian didn't have the guts to scheme against her. Thinking of this, Zi Qianshan squinted her cold and arrogant beautiful eyes and snorted lightly. I will give you one more chance. If this time you are still unable to take Yiqing Luo's life, you know the consequences. Yes. Su Xiaolian nodded vigorously and excitedly replied, yes, several times. Suddenly, an extremely noisy voice came from the crowd. Immediately after, the two instructors called out in joy, Master Gui Wu, Ghost Martial Master. Had Gui Wu and the others returned? Zi Qianshan and Su Xiaolian immediately turned their gazes towards Gui Wu. Sure enough, an extremely cold and indifferent young man in a black robe appeared before everyone's eyes. That pair of cold, piercing eyes revealed a light that was extremely inconsistent with that face. Sweeping his gaze across the students present, Gui Wu asked in an indifferent voice, Did anything happen? Replying to Master, Everything is normal and there is no danger. Instructor Rin raised his smiling face as he reported respectfully. Gui Wu nodded his head and immediately turned around. Placing his hands behind his back, he didn't say another word and left the empty space. Zi Qianshan and Su Xiaolian exchanged glances. The two of them didn't see Yiqing Luo's figure beside Gui Wu. Could it be? Chapter 1538. Before long, Zomo's figure flew over in a hurry. He paused for a moment, looked around, and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He had known Gui Wu for nearly 2 years. He more or less had some understanding of the ghost warrior's temperament. When they were still in the sky above the sea of fire, Gui Wu saw Yiqing Luo's grave expression and immediately changed his expression, forcing Qi Yan to speed up. He immediately understood Gui Wu's thoughts. Something might have happened to these students. On the surface, Gui Wu did not have any good feelings towards the students from the various academies. However, deep in his heart, he still cared about these students. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on his most beloved cultivation and spent all his time training these students. Fortunately, these students were all fine. Zoemo heaved a long sigh of relief. Old Rin, where's Ah Wu? Instructor Rin shook his head. Master Gui Wu stood here for a while before leaving. Thank you for your hard work. After saying this, Zomo's figure disappeared from everyone's sight. The two instructors looked at each other. They really did not understand what was going on with these two great Buddhas coming one after the other. Could it be student Yiqing Luo had already been murdered? This thought made the two instructors' hearts tremble. Towards this classmate of Yiqing Luo, they rather admired her. After all, after so many years of being an instructor, he had never met a student like Yiqing Luo. If such an outstanding student were to really be harmed in the flame nest, what a pity! The two instructors looked at each other and shook their heads regretfully. With a sigh, they separated. Not far away, Zi Qianshan and Su Xiaolian, who were drenched in sweat and had no strength left in their bodies, had been paying close attention to the two instructors' expressions. After seeing the regretful expressions on the two's faces, Zi Qianshan's eyes lit up, Looks like Master Gui Wu and Instructor Zhou didn't manage to get that slut Yi Qing Luo back. That seems to be the case. Su Xiaolian couldn't laugh anymore. If Yi Qing Luo wasn't found, which meant that something had happened to Yi Qing Luo. In other words, Zi Qianqian no longer needed to make use of her. Moreover, the temptation and fawning that she had tossed to Zi Qianqian just now were no longer there. The flame lair is such a dangerous place. No matter how powerful that bitch is, it's impossible for her to return alive. Zi Qianqian gritted his teeth as he spoke, his eyes shooting out a cold, killing intent. It would be best if those two trash from devil class who went to look for the little slut also died outside. Su Xiaolian carefully echoed from the side. But the smile on his face was so forced. Zi Qianqian also noticed Su Xiaolian's expression after gritting his teeth. Then, the corners of her mouth curled into a beautiful but cold smile. Student Su, since the little b** tch is dead, I think our cooperation should end here. Goddess Qianqian, Su Xiaolian raised her head in astonishment. She hadn't expected that Zi Qianqian would burn the bridge so quickly. Zi Qianqian wiped the sweat off his forehead. Her overly long bangs stuck to her face, but it made her face, which was full of smiles, look a little flirtatious. That pair of beautiful eyes flashed with a profound meaning. Su Xiaolian's heart tightened. A sense of danger spread in his heart. Zi Qianqian had developed killing intent towards her. That's right. Zi Qianqian had always been noble and elegant in front of others, as cold and elegant as a fairy who had left the secular world. But she had been following beside Zi Qianqian and knew his real face. Chapter 1539. Whereas on the other side, devil class and other students also sensed that something was amiss as all of their faces revealed an anxious and uneasy expression. They had already completed the 5 rounds of physical training. It was resting time now. They pestered the 2 instructors to inquire about Yi Qing Luo and Long Yunzhan's situation. How would the 2 instructors know about the situation? But from Gui Wu and Zhou Mo earlier, they saw their complicated expressions. Deep in their hearts, they thought that Yi Qing Luo should have met with danger. Facing these students' bombardment of questioning, they were more or less in a dilemma of how to open their mouth. This bit of hesitation made devil classes students even more worried. When Zi Qianqian saw this situation, the smile on his face grew brighter. The exhaustion from physical training was swept away at this moment. Just at this moment, not too far away, there was a commotion. It seemed like someone was arguing about something. Following that, they saw a group of people walking on the wind, not too far away from the open space. Right at the front was a man and a lady. The man was peerless, like a celestial being. The lady was devastatingly beautiful, like a fairy. The 2 of them walked hand in hand like a beautiful painting. When the lady's face was completely revealed, the students from various academies immediately recognized her. Student Yi Qing Luo. It's Student Yi Qing Luo. The students looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment. Not knowing why, that young lady who was covered in blood was obviously in a sorry state. But at this moment, there was a sense of majesty which made one unable to look straight at her. That kind of invisible, imposing manner. It made one subconsciously want to submit to her. What was going on? Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner was indeed very strong. But she didn't seem to be that strong. When everyone's vision fell onto the man beside Yi Qing Luo, who had the same outstanding temperament, their hearts suddenly started to tremble uncontrollably. Purple robe, peerless style. Wasn't this the legendary Overlord? Most of the students present knew about this. Yi Qing Luo and the rumored Overlord had a close relationship. They had not expected that they would actually meet the Overlord here. The students were extremely shocked. Some of them kept denying Dmo Xian's identity in their hearts. Someone who looks good in purple might not be the Overlord. That's right. His Majesty is very busy every day. How could he have time to come to such a place? I heard that the Overlord has been dealing with the war between the Imperial Palace and the Dark Forces recently. This person is definitely not the Overlord, however, in the next instant. The two instructors recovered from the shock and immediately walked forward, cupping their fists respectfully. Master D. Zun. They were instructors under the Ghost Martial Artist. He had been training students in various academies all year round. Naturally, she was fortunate enough to have seen DMO Xian's face. DMO Xian took a look at the two instructors and his thin lips curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. The both of you must be little Luo Er's instructors. I'll have to trouble the both of you to take care of little Luo. The two instructors were stunned. At the same time, he took a glance at Yiqing Luo, who was standing beside DMO Xian. He immediately understood and quickly put on a smiling face. Overlord is too polite, student Yiqing Luo is a rare talent, we are just fulfilling our duty as instructors. This scene shocked the students. The students who were still doing physical training fell to the ground one by one. Oh my God! Did they hear wrongly? The Overlord actually smiled at the two instructors because of Yiqing Luo? And he smiled in such a melancholic manner that made one's heart palpitate. Where was the cold and aloof Overlord? Where was the cold and unfeeling Overlord? Chapter 1540. Rumors were indeed untrustworthy. While they were chatting, Instructor Luo and Instructor Li walked over one after another. On Instructor Luo's back, there was a man who seemed to be seriously injured. In Long Yunzhan's arms was a woman. The group of people came back. Not a single person was missing. Everyone had returned. What's going on? Instructor Ren went up to Instructor Luo. When he saw the face of the man on his back, his face turned pale. This is young Master Zhu? Instructor Luo nodded. Bring young Master Zhu to the wooden shed first and treat his wounds. As he spoke, he was about to walk towards the wooden shed. Instructor Luo, there's no need. DMO Xian calmly said, I still have some matters to attend to and will be leaving soon. Leave this young Master Zhu to me. This. Instructor Luo stopped in his tracks. He had been following them all the way. How could they not see the open strife and veiled struggle between DMO Xian and Zhu Wu Xian? Chu Wuxin and DMO Xian were obviously love rivals. If he handed Zhu Wu Xian over to DMO Xian, if anything happened to Zhu Wu Xian, Death God Castle and the power behind Zhu Wu Xian would not let them off. However, if he didn't hand it over, he would be defying the D Zun's orders. It was hard to get off the tiger. Don't worry, Instructor Luo. I'm not interested in him at all. DMO Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes as he shot a glance at Zhu Wu Xian with a smile that didn't look like a smile. Since this lord is unable to accompany Lil Luor to train, then Chu Wu Xian absolutely cannot stay here. Instructor Luo, why do I suddenly feel like the Overlord's jealousy was so childish? Was this an illusion? Instructor Luo, don't worry, Xian knows what he's doing. Yiqing Luo naturally guessed what Instructor Luo was concerned about as she opened her mouth and spoke in a warm voice. Hand Zhu Wu Xian over to Xian. Xian will bring Zhu Wu Xian to Death God Castle's people. Seeing that Yiqing Luo had already opened her mouth, Instructor Luo hesitated for a moment but still passed Zhu Wu Xian to DMO Xian. Yiqing Luo urged them to take a look at Tong Ziqing's wound. Then, he sent this group of people away. The students of Devil class immediately rushed forward. Slowly, only Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian were left. Of course, this also included Zhu Wuxin, who was lying on the side, as well as the surrounding students who were staring at them dumbfoundedly. I'm leaving. DMO Xian stared at Yiqing Luo's face with an infatuated gaze. Yiqing Luo replied with a soft "n." If he hadn't been sucked into the foundation of the fire lair, he would have died. DMO Xian had probably returned to the Imperial Palace. But because of her, he had stayed for such a long time. He was afraid that the Imperial Palace was already in chaos. Yiqing Luo could not bear for Diemo Xian to leave her. However, he had no choice but to do so. After I'm done, I'll stay with you and watch you grow. Diemo Xian stretched out his long arm and pulled her into his embrace as he gently kissed her on the head. Lil Luo today's matter, I will absolutely not allow it to happen again. If I find out that you're trying to be brave again, I will use my own method. To imprison you by my side forever. The elegant sandalwood scent on him made Yiqing Luo slightly intoxicated. She replied with a soft "n" as her arms wrapped tightly around his firm waist. Raising her eyes, she met with that pair of vibrant peach blossom eyes. Her charming eyes curved. "Ah Xian, I'll wait for you." Diemo Xian's eyes flashed. He bent over and kissed Yiqing Luo's pink lips fiercely. Chapter 1541. He didn't care about the gazes around him at all. Or perhaps Diemo Xian did it on purpose. In front of the various academy students, he intentionally acted intimately with Yiqing Luo. It was to announce to the various academy students that Yiqing Luo was his, Diemo Xian's woman. Yiqing Luo had already been labeled as his exclusive Diemo Xian. This not only stopped the other men from having other thoughts towards Yiqing Luo, it also intimidated those students not to attempt to do anything to Yiqing Luo. This kiss didn't last as long as usual. Perhaps it was because she was so infatuated with him in front of everyone. Yiqing Luo felt her entire body turning soft as her body started to heat up slightly. If not for Diemo Xian's embrace around her waist, she might not even be able to stand properly. "Ah Xian." Yiqing Luo glared at him resentfully. This stare made the glint in Diemo Xian's eyes dimmer and dimmer. It was like a whirlpool. Something was constantly surging and spinning. Diemo Xian's throat moved as he swallowed. She would never know how alluring she was right now. Because of that kiss, her cheeks were dyed red, revealing traces of enchanting charm. Her pink lips were slightly red and swollen, glistening with a suggestive sheen. This glare. How was that glaring? It was clearly a hint of coquettishness and flirtatious eyes. "I'll leave first. When you miss me, don't forget to speak to me through the profound phoenix ring." Diemo Xian felt that if he stayed any longer, he might not be able to control himself. His words had just ended, without waiting for Yiqing Luo's response. Diemo Xian's figure had already disappeared before their eyes, blending into the air. Yiqing Luo's outstretched hand froze in midair. She took a few steps forward. Then, he stopped where he was. The slender hand in midair gradually curled up its fingers one by one. Then, he returned it to his chest. The expression on her face was still as calm as ever. But there was a glimmer in her charming eyes. It clearly revealed the reluctance in her heart. "Qing Luo," Ziqing's wound seems to have split open. Suddenly, Long Yunzhan's shout came from behind. Yiqing Luo readjusted her emotions as she turned around and walked towards Long Yunzhan's direction. The moment she turned around, Long Yunzhan lowered his eyes. His azure blue eyes were filled with unnaturalness. His eyes met Tong Ziqing's beautiful eyes. He was startled and looked away in panic. Therefore, he did not see the pain flowing in Tong Ziqing's eyes and the tears of self-mockery. As expected, rejecting his gentleness was the right choice. In Long Yunzhan's heart, there was only Yiqing Luo right from the start. Her wound did not split open. Long Yunzhan wasn't willing to see Yiqing Luo's reluctance towards Diemo Xian, hence, he used this excuse to divert Yiqing Luo's attention. Tong Ziqing closed her eyes. A crystal-clear tear rolled down from the corner of his eye. She endured the dull pain in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, she had already recovered her usual cold and arrogant demeanor. By the time Yiqing Luo walked to his side, she suddenly struggled a little in Long Yunzhan's arms. Then, a tearing pain came from the burning wound on his back. Her face turned pale as she looked at Yiqing Luo. "Qing Luo, I'm in so much pain." Yiqing Luo hurried over. "Let's go to the wooden shed first, the others prepare clean water." Saying that, she dragged Long Yunjian as she hurriedly rushed towards the direction of the wooden shed. Long Yunjian followed behind as he staggered a little. His expression was complicated as he looked at the person in his arms. He felt a warm, sticky feeling coming from his palm. His body suddenly froze. Chapter 1542. Tong Ziqing's pale little face started to sweat. She turned her face away and shut her eyes, ignoring Long Yunjian. The young man who was carrying her tightened his arms. A soft sigh was heard by the side of her ear. Ziqing, I'm sorry. That soft sigh made Tong Ziqing's heart throb in pain again. Her nose started to turn sour as her eyes turned red. What she wanted wasn't Long Yunjian's apology, nor was it Long Yunjian's guilt. She loved Long Yunjian. She also knew that Long Yunjian loved Yiqing Luo. Therefore, loving him was only her personal matter, and that was enough. Because of Tong Ziqing's struggle earlier, the wound on her back had indeed split open. Blood stained her clothes. When Yiqing Luo helped Tong Ziqing apply medicine, she dispersed Long Yunjian. Long Yunjian stared blankly at Tong Ziqing's direction. Until Yan Xiaoyi pushed him away. Then he had some reaction. Before he left, Long Yunjian's gaze swept past the clothes which had already been unbuttoned, revealing the blood-red wound on his back. His heart suddenly twitched. Feeling heartache? Or feeling guilty? Yan Xiaoyi scoffed lightly as she forcefully pushed Long Yunjian out of the wooden shed site. Long Yunjian didn't reply. The current Long Yunjian looked extremely dispirited and lost. There wasn't any trace of his usual indifference. His azure blue eyes stared blankly ahead, not knowing what he was thinking about. Looking at Long Yunjian's look, Yan Xiaoyi's mood instantly became agitated as she bit her lips tightly, speaking out for Tong Ziqing. Ah Zhan, you obviously know that Ziqing likes you, and has always liked you. Why can't you place your gaze on her? She didn't hesitate to sacrifice her own life for you. Even to the extent that because of a sentence from you, she didn't hesitate to aggravate her own injury. You know what it means for a woman to have a scar on her body, but she still doesn't care. As Yan Xiaoyi spoke, her voice was already choking. Her heart ached for Tong Ziqing. Her heart ached, her heart ached, her heart ached, her heart ached. The one Tong Ziqing fell in love with was such a cold man. Tong Ziqing fell in love with such a cold man. After some time, his azure blue eyes blinked as his focus fell onto Yiqing Luo. His expression was cold and his voice was calm. What about you? Shi Shanglan has always liked you. Why can't you look at him? Yan Xiaoyi's words were stuck in her throat. Long Yunjian didn't force her. He just stared at her calmly. Yan Xiaoyi had nowhere to hide. She clenched her fists and said, "That's different. I already have someone I like in my heart, so I can't possibly like Shi Shanglan." "How do you know that I don't have anyone I like?" Long Yunjian's voice was still as calm as ever. But in Yan Xiaoyi's ears, it was like a clap of thunder. Far away from the flame lair, on the back of the nine-tailed fox, the two men were speechless. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Zhu Wu Xian, who was lying at the end, looked coldly at Diamo Xian as he spoke in a chilly voice. "What exactly do you want?" Diamo Xian replied without turning his head, "I'll send you back." "Are you that kind?" Zhu Wu Xian sneered coldly, the coldness in his eyes becoming even more intense. "This lord naturally isn't that kind." Diamo Xian narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes as his lips curled into an arc. "To this lord, you still don't have any qualifications to stir up any waves in front of this lord." The meaning behind his words. He totally didn't put Zhu Wu Xian in his eyes. Chapter 1543. Every single word and sentence was declaring the relationship between him and Yiqing Luo. Inside and outside, it was displaying the sweetness between him and Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxin's face grew increasingly pale. A pair of cold eyes, suffused with a biting chill, stared icily at Diamo Xian's complacent, smiling face. So, you totally don't have to worry about what this lord will do to you. Dmo Xian calmly accepted his offensive gaze. That smug tone caused the anger and jealousy in Zhu Wuxin's heart to burn even brighter. Dmo Xian, everything is just the beginning. Yiqing Luo has already recalled everything that we had experienced in the past. She will return to my side, it's just a matter of time. Zhu Wuxin's eyes were cold and deep, and his expression was extremely cold. His voice grew colder and colder. It seeped into one's heart and gave rise to an indescribable chill. We still don't know who the final winner will be. Zhu Wu Xian's declaration of war did not move Dmo Xian in the slightest. On the contrary, Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards as he gave an extremely ridiculing smile. Zhu Wu Xian, if you really love Lil Luo'er, how would you not know Lil Luo'er's character? That smile was like a sharp blade that pierced Zhu Wu Xian's eyes. Zhu Wuxin's body tensed up, and a trace of deep coldness flashed across his eyes. Yes. He didn't know Yiqing Luo's character at all. The Yiqing Luo in his memory and the current Yiqing Luo were two extremes. But, no matter if it was the former Yiqing Luo or the current Yiqing Luo, he didn't understand her at all. If it was said that the former Yiqing Luo was timid and weak, but under that kind of situation, she was able to save her who was covered in injuries and almost died. He could even wittily deceive Yi Tianquang. If it was said that the former Yiqing Luo had her own intelligence and bravery. However, when she was bullied by her brothers and sisters or servants, she could only endure it bitterly and did not know how to resist. They had been together for nearly half a month. He still didn't understand Yiqing Luo. Not to mention the current Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo had recalled the past. Would she really return to his side? Zhu Wu Xian actually did not have much confidence. What's more, he felt that in Yiqing Luo's heart, there was no longer the beautiful memories that they had experienced together 5 years ago. But when she saw Dmo Xian proudly proclaiming his sovereignty, Zhu Wu Xian's heart could not bear it no matter what. Zhu Wu Xian, you're really a very pitiful person. Dmo Xian cast a sidelong glance at the man whose face was ashen as he laughed out softly. Zhu Wu Xian lowered his cold eyes and suppressed the dull pain in his heart. If you truly love Lil Luo'er, then you should be able to sense who exactly is the person you love. Even if it's the same face, the same body, and the same identity, the feeling is still different. What you're obsessed with is the past Shaoqing Luo, and not the current Xiao Luo. This point, even you yourself have not discovered it? Dmo Xian said with a smile yet not a smile. Every word was spat out very clearly. Zhu Wu Xian's ashen face immediately stiffened. His brows creased tightly as he stared at Dmo Xian in astonishment, as though he was questioning the meaning behind his words. Dmo Xian shifted his line of sight away, not bothering with his offensive gaze. Zhu Wu Xian's heart suddenly tightened at this moment, as though there was an icy cold big hand, tightly clutching his heart. It made him feel a suffocating, unbearable feeling. Dmo Xian's words. What did he mean by that? What did he mean by the past Shaoqing Luo, and not the current Xiao Luo? Chapter 1544. Flame Nest, Wooden Shed. Yiqing Luo applied the medicine on Tong Ziqing again. Just lie down properly and don't move around recklessly. Bear with the pain, itchiness and whatnot. If the wound split open again, don't force me to let you sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. Tong Ziqing exhaled a light breath from her nose as a response. Yiqing Luo packed the healing items in her hands, picked up the basin which had already been dyed red, and left the wooden shed. Just as he left the wooden shed, he saw Long Yunzhan standing at the side with a cold expression. His eyes seemed to be flowing with an incomprehensible meaning. Hearing footsteps, Long Yunzhan regained his senses from his deep thoughts as he turned and fixed his gaze on Yiqing Luo. His gaze finally landed on the bright red basin in Yiqing Luo's hands. Long Yunzhan's thin lips moved slightly and his voice was a little bitter. After pausing for a moment, he asked, "How's her injury?" "If she cooperates, she will at most recover within 3 days." Yiqing Luo passed the basin of water to Long Yunzhan. "I've applied medicine on her and now she needs to rest. After all, she's injured because of you, so take good care of her for these 3 days." Long Yunzhan stared blankly at the basin full of bright red water. That redness dyed his azure-blue eyes with a reddish hue. There was a dull pain in his heart. "I will take good care of her." He opened his mouth and spat out a few words in a hoarse voice. He lowered his eyes, carried the basin of blood, and walked in another direction. Yiqing Luo looked at his back as she gave a long sigh. Hopefully, he would be able to detect Ziqing's feelings for him as soon as possible. Yiqing Luo took a look at the darkening sky and rushed towards the direction of the open space. Most of the students had already completed the 5 rounds of physical training. They were exhausted and panting. However, there were also about 300 people who were still struggling desperately. By the time Yiqing Luo rushed to the open space, there were already hundreds of people lying on the open space, densely packed together. Devil classes students immediately went forward and surrounded Yiqing Luo, expressing their concern in a flurry. For a moment, the entire open space was bustling with noise and excitement. The other students who had fallen to the ground also pricked up their ears to listen to their movement. Yiqing Luo suddenly disappeared. No one knew where he had gone. Master Gui Wu and instructor Zhou personally went to look for them. In the end, not only did Di Zun accompany him back, he also met the noble young Master Chu. Young Master Zhu was even injured. There were also students from the devil class who were injured. All the students were extremely curious. He wanted to know what had happened to Yiqing Luo and the others. Among the crowd, 2 pairs of venomous eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. These 2 people were Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaoyan. Yiqing Luo, that slut, why would she return? And he was unscathed? Wasn't she supposed to have died inside the flame lair? Why did she come back? Zi Qianqian was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Her beautiful face was also extremely distorted because of her jealousy. Su Xiaoyan, who was standing to the side, heaved a sigh of relief, but she also felt uneasy. Yiqing Luo returned safely. This also meant that Zi Qianqian still needed her help. But when Yiqing Luo returned, she would definitely not let her off. Su Xiaoyan secretly cast a sidelong glance at Zi Qianqian. Zi Qianqian's distorted face was filled with viciousness. And around them, there were quite a number of students who shot their gazes over because of Zi Qianqian's unconcealed murderous intent. When they saw Zi Qianqian's expression, all of them started to discuss in disdainful whispers. However, Zi Qianqian's attention was placed on Yiqing Luo. Chapter 1545. Su Xiaoyan didn't go out of her way to remind him. She sneered in her heart. If not for the fact that she wanted to stay in the Heavenly Academy, she would not even bother to serve Zi Qianqian, who looked smart but was actually as dumb as a pig. She had maintained the image of a cold goddess for many years. At this moment, he actually couldn't hold on any longer. Then she would let the other students discover her true colors. Su Xiaoyan restrained the coldness in her eyes. Did Zi Qianqian really think that she was a fool? Burning the bridge after crossing the river. He even wanted to kill her. Would she still be as obedient to Zi Qianqian as she was before? Su Xiaoyan suddenly remembered that 2 hours ago, when she had gone to find a secluded place to pee, she had run into someone there. The man's words echoed in his mind. "Bring Zi Qianqian over, I can help you. To let Yiqing Luo die without a burial ground." "Xiaoyan!" Suddenly, he heard a low, sharp shout. Su Xiaoyan snapped out of her thoughts and met Zi Qianqian's resentful eyes. She felt a chill down her spine and replied in a low voice, Qian goddess. You said earlier that someone can help me kill Yiqing Luo?" Zi Qianqian's voice seemed to be wrapped in a layer of frost, his whole body releasing a strong murderous aura. Su Xiaoyan nodded vigorously. Zi Qianqian narrowed his eyes. Alright, bring me to that person. But there's one more condition. Su Xiaolian was overjoyed, but then she pretended to be hesitant. Zi Qianqian frowned. What? That person said, if he wants Yi Qing Luo to die, you must cooperate with the plan. Su Xiaolian replied. Zi Qianqian's face darkened. Get her to cooperate with the plan? Was he thinking of using her as a weapon? Su Xiaolian could tell what Zi Qianqian was thinking at a glance. She advised in a low voice, Goddess Qianqian, since that person took the initiative to look for you, he must be sincere in cooperating with you. It's fine even if he's just using you. You and him can mutually benefit from each other. To put it plainly, Zi Qianqian went to see that person. Weren't they just using each other? Otherwise, on what basis would that person kill Yi Qing Luo for Zi Qianqian? It was just that the both of them had an irreconcilable enmity with Yi Qing Luo, hence they were cooperating with each other. Zi Qianqian pondered for a moment, but he did not give a direct answer. We'll talk about it after we meet. Su Xiaolian inwardly cursed, smelly whore, but on the surface she nodded obediently and said, Then tonight, I'll take you to see that person. Tonight? Zi Qianqian's expression froze. That person is here? There were only students from the various academies here. Following them were Gui Wu and the 5 instructors, as well as dozens of teachers and elders from the main courtyard. Was that person a student or one of these teachers and elders? Yes. Su Xiaolian nodded. That person isn't one of our students. It seems like he's hiding in a dark corner of the blazing flame lair, observing everything here. He should have a huge hatred for Yi Qing Luo. Alright, I'll meet him tonight. Zi Qianqian clenched his fists tightly as a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. The color of the sky gradually turned dark. After dinner, the students only rested for an hour before they were asked to go for a night run. Even at night, the temperature in the flame nest was extremely high. The feeling of being burned by the raging fire didn't show any signs of stopping. Intense heat. High-intensity physical training. These students' mouths were already parched and they found it hard to swallow their food. But if they didn't eat, they didn't have the energy to endure the devastation below. These pampered young masters, how could they bear this kind of life? Chapter 1546. Not long after, the students from the various academies had already emptied their water bags. When they went to ask the instructors for their water bags, they were rejected. It was stated clearly that each person could only receive 2 water bags a day. Moreover, in order to receive the water bags, they had to complete the tasks assigned by the instructors before they were eligible to receive it. When the news reached the ears of the students, those students who were preparing for the night run, all collapsed onto the ground. In such a hot climate, if there was no water supply, they had no way to survive. Their mouths were dry and they had to undergo brutal training. This was simply asking for their lives. Moreover, 2 water bags a day was not even enough for them to drink a mouthful. The students were cursing in their hearts, but no one dared to speak out. Alright, all of you, keep your spirits up. Run 3 rounds around the air and you can rest. Instructor Luo's loud voice was extremely loud in the night. Instructor Li immediately chimed in aggressively, Look at all of you, which part of you look like energetic students? Look at the students from the devil class, they still completed the 5 physical training, why didn't they complain about being tired? Instructor Li's words were meant to motivate the students. But at this juncture, everyone looked at the students from the devil class, all of them were refreshed and there was not a single drop of sweat on them. How could their hearts be balanced? Especially looking at them, each and every one of them was holding a water bag, drinking water contentedly. Their hearts almost collapsed. They were obviously students from the academy. Why was the treatment so different? Those perverts from the devil class, how could they be so perverted? Not only did they not admire the devil class in the slightest. Instead, from envy it turned into jealousy and finally into hatred. Human nature was like this. They were a little unhappy. They hoped that the whole world would be unhappy with them. And those elite students from the Heavenly Academy were also unable to balance their hearts. Immediately. Get ready. Start running. Instructor Lee naturally did not ignore the gazes of the students looking at the devil class. Towards these students who did not know how to improve themselves, but were jealous of those who were better than them, he felt a surge of irritation in his heart. He simply could not be bothered to talk to these students. Instructor Lee's character had always been irritable. No matter how exhausted the students were, they still perked up and started the night run. Devil class students were far ahead. Yiqing Luo had been paying close attention to the surrounding movements. He increased his perception to the maximum. Even with Gui Wu and Zhou Mo present, she was still a little worried. The people from the dark forces did not take action when they were not around. This point really made Yiqing Luo unable to understand. Logically speaking, when Zhou Mo, Gui Wu, and the others were trapped in the foundation of the fire lair, it was the best time for the dark forces to strike. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used those flame beasts to prevent them from leaving the base. Yiqing Luo was still speculating on the reason why the dark forces didn't take action. Therefore, she had to be vigilant at all times. And this vigilance, which made Yiqing Luo totally unaware of it. Kitty Lee, who had always been by her side and sticking close to her, had disappeared without her noticing. Oh! Kitty Lee was jogging behind her sister, as her bright eyes stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's face. His eyes were filled with unconcealable admiration. The next moment, her body felt light. Someone tugged at his arm. Then, she fell into a wide embrace. Chapter 1547. Woo woo! Kitty Lee's mouth was gagged, so she couldn't speak and could only struggle with all her might. His small hands were tightly clasped on the arm across his waist. Round nails embedded in his flesh. The man behind her didn't even make a sound. Cat! A student beside him sensed it and called out. When he saw the person behind Kitty Lee, he stopped talking. By the time Yiqing Luo turned around, Kitty Lee was no longer by her side. Where's the cat? Yiqing Luo frowned and asked the student who made the noise. The young man looked at the dense forest not far away with a strange expression on his face. She was taken by Instructor Zhou. Zhou Mo? Yiqing Luo thought of the foundation grounds, Zhou Mo who had been hugging Kitty Lee and refused to let go. His brows twitched a few times. This Zhou Mo, could it be that he had taken a fancy to her family's kitten? However, since Zhou Mo took Kitty Lee away, Kitty Lee should be fine as well. Yiqing Luo didn't think too much as she called out to the devil class students and continued with their night jogging. In the dense forest, Kitty Lee finally stopped in the midst of the kidnapping. The headscarf on his head had been taken off at some point. She pricked up her black ears and twitched. Apart from the sound of the warm wind blowing, the sound of students running could no longer be heard. The hand covering his mouth slowly moved away. Kitty Lee angrily opened her mouth and quickly bit the hand. Her pearly white teeth left a neat bite mark on the back of his hand. She bit his hand and snorted coldly, "Frivolous man! If you don't let go of Kitty, Kitty will scratch you to death with its sharp claws." She didn't use much strength. When she bit the back of Zhou Mo's hand, she didn't feel any pain. Instead, she felt a kind of numbing sensation. Zhou Mo's thin red lips curled up slightly. Listening to Kitty Lee's coquettish voice, a trace of playfulness flashed through his long and narrow eyes. "If you could bear to, you would have scratched me long ago. Up until now, you've only bitten me once. That's enough to prove, little wildcat, you can't bear to see me get hurt." Zhou Mo's low and hoarse voice carried a strong magnetism. He stifled a low chuckle. Beside the swaying black cat's ear, came his husky voice, "Little wildcat, you're feeling sorry for me." That warm breath made Kitty Lee's ears itch. His whole body actually felt a little weak. Her body trembled slightly as she avoided Zhou Mo's lips. Her face turned even redder as she said, What nonsense are you talking about? Kitty will not feel sorry for you." She was furious and struggled. But how could her strength be a match for Zoemo? However, her struggle only made Zoemo hold her even tighter. Kitty Lee's delicate little face was flushed red. She was angry but also embarrassed. "You let go of me, you lecherous instructor." Kitty Lee gritted her teeth, her little claws desperately trying to pry open his hand. "Lustful." Zoemo raised his eyebrows, and a faint luster appeared in his eyes. He stared at the pink lips in front of him. His eyes flickered with a gloomy luster. He suddenly reached out and grabbed Kitty Lee's chin. His long and narrow eyes formed a charming and seductive arc. "I haven't done anything, and you're already saying that I'm lustful. If I don't do anything, won't I be letting down your good reputation?" Kitty Lee's black eyes suddenly widened, her face full of disbelief. Before she could react, a ball of warmth fell on Kitty Lee's lip. Zomo's kiss was not very forceful. It was like a dragonfly touching the surface of the water. But there was a hint of inexplicable affection. Chapter 1548. Kitty Lee's eyes reddened from the kiss, and the hand that was beating his chest gradually lost its strength. Zoemo stared at the girl in his arms. The lips that were kissed swollen. The beautiful eyes that were half resentful, clear and moist, were stained with a thin layer of mist. The blush on her cheeks was extremely alluring. His heart seemed to have been hit hard by something. He quietly stared at Kitty Lee's face, and his heart was in turmoil. For some reason, when he saw this little girl, he had an inexplicable urge to play with her. He also made a move. After being teased more and more, he actually fell in love with this feeling. This little wild cat of the orc race had a fatal attraction to him. This attraction came extremely suddenly. He himself did not understand what was the reason for this. When Kitty Lee raised her eyes with a blushing face and glared fiercely at the frivolous man who took advantage of her. But it crashed into his extremely deep and dark eyes that were glistening with flowing light. Maybe it was because of that kiss. His eyes were faintly flickering with an indistinct red glow. It made that handsome face look even more devilish. Kitty Lee's heart trembled. Her heart suddenly began to beat uncontrollably. She hurriedly lowered her eyes, not daring to look at Zomo's eyes. She seemed to stare for another second. Her heart was about to jump out of her throat. She actually felt that this frivolous man was so good-looking. She had almost been hooked by the frivolous man's devilish appearance, and had almost lost her soul and 7 spirit. No way. She absolutely could not be moved by this frivolous man's appearance. Kitty Lee kept warning herself in her heart. As a cat-beast princess of the orc race, she could not be moved by a human. Even if, in the cat-beast race, a female who was hugged and kissed by a male must stay together. But Zoemo was not a half-orc of the cat-beast race. Zoemo was a human. So this rule of the cat-beast race did not count. Kitty Lee tried hard to calm her mind, her arms began to struggle. "Frivolous man, let go of Kitty! If you are angry, go find other female students. I'm sure those female students will be especially willing to serve you." "You want me to find another woman?" Zomo's face darkened as he grabbed Kitty Lee's waist. For some reason, he felt that Kitty Lee's words were extremely harsh. Kitty Lee was frightened and shrank back. But her waist was being held very tightly. She had no way out. Pursing her red lips, she lowered her head. Why did you have to provoke Kitty?" "Yes, yours truly wants to provoke you." "So what?" Zoemo squinted his eyes and shot out a sharp, cold glare. His slender fingers lifted Kitty Lee's lower jaw forcefully. He forced her to look into his eyes. Her watery eyes were like the vast starry sky. There was even a hazy mist on it. The more he tolerated it, the more tenderness he felt for her. Zoemo subconsciously relaxed his grip. A low and hoarse voice rang out softly, "If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have worked." Kitty Lee's heart skipped a beat. Soon after, she was unable to adapt to the rhythm of the beating. Somewhere in the bottom of her heart, it was soft and melted into a piece. She had to admit that Zhou Mo's flirting skills were definitely top-notch. For a girl like Kitty Lee who was innocent and ignorant of the world, she was easily flirted with. Kitty Lee's face was flushed red. She struggled to break free from his fingers and turned her face away, refusing to give him an answer. Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. The smile at the corner of his mouth turned into an evil smile. His eyes were also filled with a strong smile. Chapter 1549. The corners of Zhou Mo's lips curled up. His mellow voice was extremely alluring. Little wildcat, if this young master hears any words that this young master doesn't like from your mouth again, this young master will use this young master's method to teach you a lesson. He narrowed his eyes and glanced meaningfully at her slightly swollen red lips. That gaze seemed to imply something. No matter how innocent Kitty Lee was, she understood. Her face instantly turned red, and she raised her fist and punched Zhou Mo's smirking face. You're shameless. Damn it. This lecherous instructor was simply too shameful, didn't he? Shameless, lecherous instructor. Do you remember what I said? Zhou Mo held her little fist that was coming towards him. His large and thick palm held the small and delicate hand tightly. Kitty Lee did not answer, and wanted to use her other fist to hit him. However, under his deep and profound gaze, Yi Zichen's eyes were filled with deep meaning. Kitty Lee's hand that was in the air slowly dropped down. Her little face was white and red at the same time. Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows and smiled devilishly. He bent down, and his devilish face enlarged in Kitty Lee's eyes. That invasive gaze made Kitty Lee subconsciously cover her mouth. Zhou Mo could not help but laugh. He felt that it was quite interesting to tease this little wildcat once in a while. But his words seemed to have scared the little wildcat. If she avoided him, it would be troublesome. Thinking of this, Zhou Mo did not forcefully attack again. Instead, he stretched out his other hand and used his slender fingers to play with the hair in front of Kitty Lee's forehead. His low and hoarse voice sounded in her ear. Little wildcat, let's stop here for today, in the future we will. Before the last word long could be finished, Zhou Mo suddenly tightened his arm. Kitty Lee fell into his arms. Kitty Lee was shocked and struggled in fear. Her little face was pale, thinking that Zhou Mo wanted to do something. But Zhou Mo's expression suddenly became serious, and his shimmering red phoenix eyes were like a keen cheetah, scanning the surroundings. As a beastman, Kitty Lee had a very strong sense. She immediately stopped struggling. What's wrong? There's someone here. Zhou Mo tightened his arms around her slender waist, and his body swayed. He had already disappeared into the night. Did you see anything? Zhou Mo lowered his head and asked the woman in his arms. Kitty Lee was a little stunned. Hearing Zhou Mo's reply, she hurriedly raised her eyes and looked ahead with the help of the feline race's night vision. All he could see was a dense forest. Not a single person was seen. Zhou Mo saw that she did not speak for a long time, so he stopped chasing. A pair of sharp almond-shaped eyes swept the surroundings. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Let's go back first." Oh. Kitty Lee reacted and quickly nodded. Because of that unfamiliar aura, he was unable to chase after that figure. This caused Zhou Mo to lose the desire to tease the cat. There were simply too many students at the outer perimeter of the fire nest. They must ensure the safety of every student. If an unknown person were to sneak into the flame nest at this time, they had to catch him before he revealed his intentions. He had to rush back and discuss this matter with Gui Wu. The two of them looked around again, and after confirming that nothing was out of the ordinary, they hurried back to the open space. In the depths of the forest, in the dark night, a slender figure gradually appeared. That figure seemed to have fused with the night. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see that there was someone there. The most shocking thing was, in the arms of that figure, there was a petite figure. The surrounding flames flickered. The figure in the arms of that person was vaguely revealed. That beautiful face that could make one's soul swoon. Chapter 1550. Deep into the night. The students were exhausted after the night run. How would they have the energy to fight for a bed with the other students? After running 5 laps, they received a water bag. The students fell onto the ground and fell into a deep sleep. Those students who had a bed returned to their own beds to sleep. But moments later, the entire raging flames lair fell into silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Kitty Li, who was sleeping with her side facing her, her little hand still clutching her sleeve tightly. In her mind, she was thinking about what Kitty Li told her when she came back. The outer perimeter of the raging flames lair, in the enchantment set up by the main elder. There were outsiders, who didn't belong to the various academies. Moreover, that person sensed that he was discovered by Zhou Mo and immediately left. His speed was so fast that even Zhou Mo couldn't match up to him. Who could it be? Although Yiqing Luo had never experienced or seen Zhou Mo's ability. But she knew clearly that Zhou Mo was on good terms with Gui Wu. After all, he wasn't someone who could be underestimated. Zhou Mo couldn't even catch up to him. It could be seen how strong that outsider was. Could it be someone from the dark forces? She wondered if Gui Wu and Zhou Mo had come to a conclusion. Just as she was pondering, she suddenly heard a rustling sound not far away. Following that, she saw 2 people crawling up from the corner of the wooden shed. Taking advantage of the cover of the night, the 2 of them, one in front and one behind, quietly left the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo's night vision was not bad. She recognized the 2 of them at one glance. They were Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaoyan. Her slender brows creased slightly. These 2. Why didn't they sleep properly in the middle of the night and wanted to leave like thieves? What were they trying to do? An ominous premonition arose from the bottom of her heart. She got up and was about to chase after them. Kitty Li held her sleeves tightly. By the time Yiqing Luo carefully untied Kitty Li's fingers, the 2 of them had long disappeared. Yiqing Luo looked at the direction where Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaoyan had left and quietly chased after them. But she had increased her perception to the maximum. But she still didn't discover any figure. In a dark corner of the dense forest not far away, Zi Qianqian stopped under a fire tree under Su Xiaoyan's lead. Zi Qianqian looked around and felt a chill run down his spine. There was a hair-raising atmosphere. Where is the person you're talking about? Zi Qianqian asked snappily. Su Xiaoyan shook her head. She only told us to wait here. Zi Qianqian's expression immediately darkened. That person told us to wait here, so we have to wait here? His heart was filled with uncontrollable rage. What's in that brain of yours? You don't even know who the other party is, yet you believe him so easily. It was a waste of time for me to follow you here. Zi Qianqian flicked her sleeves and turned around, intending to go back the way she came. However, she turned around. Then he met a pair of his eyes were as cold as ice. In the dark night, it was extremely horrifying. Zi Qianqian felt a chill run down her spine, and her delicate body immediately tensed up. In the night, a slender figure was faintly discernible. It was like a phantom, illusory and illusory. However, upon closer inspection, one could clearly see that person's figure. Zi Qianqian's heart trembled. She immediately took out the Tianling scepter and looked at that person vigilantly. But she heard Su Xiaoyan's joyful voice from behind. "Miss, you're finally here." Chapter 1551. That person slowly walked out. In the dark night, he was faintly discernible, extremely unreal. But Zi Qianqian saw. In that person's arms was a petite figure. Under the weak firelight, Zi Qianqian could vaguely discern. That was a lady. It was an extremely beautiful woman who looked like a fairy. Zi Qianqian suddenly understood. The person who wanted to cooperate with her was not that person who looked like a shadow, but the lady in the shadow's arms. Indeed, she heard that lady's clear voice rang, "Miss Z, I won't beat around the bush with you. Since you followed Miss Su here, it means that you have agreed to our cooperation." Zi Qianqian frowned as she looked at her vigilantly, not replying. The lady didn't mind as she continued, "Since we want to cooperate, then I will directly reveal my identity." She patted the shadow who was hugging her. The shadow moved and a weak ray of light was emitted from his chest. That was a small luminous pearl. The light revealed the lady's face completely. "I am Feng Ling, Overlord's fiancé." Feng Ling's lips curled slightly as her eyes turned slightly cold. Yiqing Luo, that slut, whenever she sees a man, she would resort to all sorts of methods to seduce him. Now even my brother Di has fallen into her trap. Mentioning this point, the expression on Feng Ling's face revealed some malevolence and hatred. This person. Zi Qianqian felt that she looked familiar. It seemed that they had met before at the West Lawn Square during the class confrontation. At that time, this lady called Feng Ling was the self-proclaimed fiancée of Dmo Xian. Zi Qianqian was able to get to where she was today. Naturally, she wasn't some ignorant person. Hearing Feng Ling's words, her brain turned and roughly guessed the enmity between Feng Ling and Yiqing Luo. No matter if the fiancé which Feng Ling mentioned was true or false, Zi Qianqian could be completely rest assured. Because Feng Ling really loved Dmo Xian, she would definitely hate Yiqing Luo, who got Dmo Xian. This cooperation wasn't impossible. Moreover, Zi Qianqian could tell that Feng Ling was seriously injured. That was why she allowed the shadow to become her legs, bringing her around the flame lair. This injury. Zi Qianqian recalled that in the evening, when Yiqing Luo and the rest returned, they were covered in blood. He could roughly guess it. Perhaps it was Yiqing Luo who had hurt Feng Ling. Thinking of this, Zi Qianqian slightly narrowed his eyes and regained his usual noble and cold demeanor. How confident is Miss Feng? If Miss Z is willing to cooperate with us, I'm 100% sure. Feng Ling smiled mysteriously. Zi Qianqian raised her brows. So confident? Of course. A hint of madness and infatuation shone in Wind Chime's eyes. To get Brother D back, I can sacrifice everything. Women who went crazy for love were the most terrifying. Zi Qianqian naturally understood this feeling. She pondered for a moment, clenched her fists, and smiled arrogantly. All right, I agree to cooperate with you. In the darkness, no one could see. Wisps of black aura lingered above their heads, not dissipating for a long time. The second half of the night, Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian returned to the wooden shed. There was a smile on their faces. It was clear that he was chatting happily with Wind Chimes. However, their smiles soon froze on their faces. The light from the fire elongated the silhouette standing outside the wooden shed. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest, leaning against the tree. Her green and white uniform, under the illumination of the fire, was dyed red. That black hair which was casually scattered on her shoulders, fluttered freely. Chapter 1552. Zi Qianqian's voice became hoarse. He opened his mouth and spat out a single word. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up slightly as her charming eyes curved into a narrow arc. The two students have been working hard for the entire day, and not sleeping in the middle of the night. Where did you go? She had a warm smile on her face, as if she was just having a casual chat. His eyes, which were as bright as torches, locked onto the two people in front of him. Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian felt like they had nowhere to hide. Seeing that the two of them did not reply, Yiqing Luo walked straight towards the two of them. Perhaps they had just discussed how to kill Yiqing Luo. Zi Qianqian felt a little guilty. Instinctively, he took a few steps back, until Su Xiaolian ruthlessly grabbed her arm from behind. Only then did Zi Qianqian regain her senses. We are just going to the toilet. Why is student Yiqing Luo also going to the toilet? Zi Qianqian took a deep breath and steadied her mind. Yiqing Luo replied with a meaningful "oh" as her charming eyes kept sweeping across Zi Qianqian's body. Student Zi Qianqian and student Su Xiaolian are indeed as close as sisters. Even when going to the toilet they are inseparable. Both of their faces paled. Zi Qianqian immediately slapped Su Xiaolian's hand away and glared at Su Xiaolian in disgust. If there's nothing else, I'm going to rest. Saying that, Zi Qianqian walked past Yiqing Luo and headed towards his own bed. Yiqing Luo didn't stop her. He just turned around and faced Zi Qianqian's direction, smiling calmly. Student Zi Qianqian, did you meet some strange people when you were going to the toilet? Why do I feel like Yiqing Luo had yet to finish her words? Zi Qianqian's body stiffened. But very quickly, she pretended not to hear Yiqing Luo's words as she calmly walked to her own bed and lay down. Yiqing Luo's vision seemed to be looking towards Zi Qianqian's direction. In fact, she had been paying attention to Su Xiaolian, who was behind her, out of the corner of her eye. After hearing her words, Su Xiaolian subconsciously raised her arms and smelled the scent on her body. Yiqing Luo's heart sank. It seemed that her guess was correct. These two people must have met someone in the night. The people they saw were from the dark forces, or was it that during this training, they wanted to deal with the devil class? After all, the bird that sticks out gets shot. Their devil class had indeed attracted the disgust of the students from the various academies due to their high profile. If Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian were really going to meet the students from the other academies, then they would be able to see the students from the other academies. Yiqing Luo didn't put it to heart. In her eyes, the students' tricks were just child's play. What he was afraid of, the two of them had been targeted by the dark forces. The target of the dark forces was all the students here. If these two were to help the dark forces, I'm afraid that would be dangerous. Seeing that Yiqing Luo didn't speak for a long time, Su Xiaolian didn't dare to speak to her. He shuffled past Yiqing Luo's side timidly. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the both of them as she returned to her own bed. Perhaps it was because the day was too tiring. At this moment, not a single student had woken up. A moment later, the entire wooden shed fell silent once again. The next day, it was 5:00 in the morning. The two instructors used their profound qi to shout at all the students. 2 incenses worth of time to wash up. All the students rushed towards the open space to gather. These students were exhausted and their bodies were sore. They had only slept for less than 4 hours when they were woken up. Chapter 1553. However, these students had no way to resist. If they didn't listen to the instructor's arrangements and orders, if they didn't agree, they would reject the water bags and 3 meals. In this kind of ghastly place, not eating or drinking, that would absolutely kill them. Of course, the instructors wouldn't really let them die. But the instructors would use their own methods to let them experience the feeling of living a life worse than death. As usual, by the time they reached the empty space, Devil Class's students had already lined up neatly. The curtains of a day's training had just begun. On this day, other than the other academy's students who occasionally said some sour and sarcastic words, it was a very peaceful life for him. Nothing major had happened. During the training process, Zoemo had taken the opportunity to lay his hands on Kitty Lee, causing the both of them to fight so hard that the sky and earth were turned upside down. Today, indeed, nothing major had happened. Yiqing Luo also took the opportunity to tell Gui Wu about Zi Qianqian and Su Xiaolian's matters last night. Just like that, days passed one after another, and just like that, 4 days had passed. What Yiqing Luo was worried about had not happened. On the 5th day, most of the students were already used to this kind of training mode. They could clearly feel that their physical strength had a huge increase. And it was precisely because of this. The instructors then divided them into groups according to the academies, to carry out the chasing battle between the academies. A few instructors gave each academy's representative a space pocket which was pasted with Gui Wu's logo, which could be monitored by Gui Wu at any time. According to the recent performance, the one who received the space pocket from Heavenly Academy was Yiqing Luo. The instructors divided the students into groups according to the academies, dispersing them at various corners of the blazing flame nest. The range, naturally, was within the boundary. After the various academy students were dispersed, Instructor Li's energetic voice then rang in midair. Next, Master Gui Wu will release the magical beasts which he reared, into the outer perimeter of the blazing flame nest. Magical beasts? The students instantly went into an uproar. These demonic beasts do not have physical bodies. However, they possess absolute destructive power. If one were to be careless, they would be seriously injured at the very least. In the worst case, they would lose their lives. During this process, none of the supervisors will interfere in the slightest. So, if you want to live, then try your best to kill the magical beast. Once you kill a magical beast, the magical beast will turn into a magic crystal. Put the magic crystal into your space pocket and you'll get 1 point. Before the magical crystals are put into the space pocket, the students of the various academies can also plunder them. In other words, in addition to killing magical beasts and obtaining mana crystals, your mission is to have the ability to protect your own mana crystals. The students were in an uproar. He could not help but curse in his heart. There was definitely something wrong with the ghost martial artist's mind. Why did he enjoy watching students kill each other so much? Over the past few days, the students had already accumulated resentment over the snatching of beds. Now they were snatching the mana crystals. The academy that wins will be able to leave the flame lair in advance, and will also receive a special reward from Master Gui Wu. Instructor Ren's voice rang out. Master Gui Wu will directly announce the results of the competition to the world. It will also be used as a reference for your academy's rankings this year. Therefore, for the glory of your academies, all of you must work hard. The students. You want to announce it to the world? You want to use it as a reference for ranking? If they were to fall behind in this competition, then,